One Piece Comics Heritage System Chapter 1 Lux D. Carl. Yi Fan's body felt exhausted, and his legs were already a little sore from the long journey to work. As he walked into the community, he looked at the towering buildings and lamented the hustle and bustle of modern cities. Ding dong. Suddenly, his cell phone rang in his trouser pocket, disrupting his thoughts. Yi Fan's expression changed and he hurriedly took out his cell phone to answer. "Hey, Mom, are you okay?" he asked with concern. "Tell me, you are 27 years old, can you find a partner? Today, your aunt next door's daughter-in-law gave birth to a big fat boy, and she came to my place to show off. Can you be a little proud?" Yi Fan's mother kept nagging on the other end of the phone. Yi Fan took away the phone with a wry smile, trying to ease his mother's nagging. Hey, Mom, the signal here may not be very good. I can't hear you, beep beep beep." He had no choice but to hang up the phone and buy himself some breathing time. "What age are you still pushing for marriage?" Alas. Yi Fan sighed, his heart full of desire for freedom. After all, he didn't want to fall in love yet. After seeing too many bloody incidents, he didn't want to step into the grave of marriage so early. He finally reached the door of his home, took out the key and opened the door. This tiny abode was clearly a safe haven in his life. In this room, he can put down all pretense and show his truest self. Ding dong. Yi Fan looked at the group messages and found that team leader Joe Poppy was in the message group again, asking him to quickly find materials. Yi Fan thought that he would need to find character materials that fit the new comics when he went home today. Otherwise he would not be able to submit work tomorrow. He sighed in his heart. When will this hard life of a social worker end? I thought that I would be able to find a job by studying computer science in college, but I didn't expect that I would become an animation designer. As he spoke, he pulled up his seat and turned on his computer, finding and opening his favorite game, League of Legends. Yi Fan wants to find solace through games, hoping to find the truest version of himself in the virtual world and at the same time release his resentment. Let's play top laner Galen today, Yi Fan said to himself. He clicked on the ranking to choose the hero. Then, he walked to the refrigerator, took out a bottle of happy water, sat back on the chair, and concentrated on getting ready to start the game. Yi Fan's mood gradually calmed down in the excitement of the game, and his thoughts gradually became free from the busy life. His eyes became focused, and his fingers danced quickly and vigorously on the keyboard, fighting on the battlefield with the heroes in the game. This night, Yi Fan was immersed in the world of games, as if he had forgotten all the troubles in reality. He is just an ordinary young man who longs for freedom and finds his own sense of existence in the virtual world. However, he did not know that his life was about to undergo a huge change that would bring about earth-shaking changes in his life. New world, an unknown desert island. Yi Fan shivered. Feeling a chill all over my body, I sat up suddenly, looked at my surroundings, and touched my body at the same time. Dreaming? So true? Yi Fan quickly closed his eyes and rubbed his eyes carefully. Opening his eyes again, with a shocked look on his face, he found that the scene in front of him had not changed at all. The sounds of various animals came from the island, and the sound of seawater lapping at the shore could be heard in his ears. It was already approaching dusk at this time, and then he felt something was wrong, and suddenly a strange memory emerged in his mind. I am Yi Fan, no, I am Lux D. Carl. I am 18 years old. I was attacked and killed at sea when I was sailing with my parents. I escaped during the chaos and encountered wind and waves and drifted to this island. This body was drowned. Then he is soul traveling, this is his time traveling. Only then did he realize that he must have traveled through time. He quickly took off his pants, lowered his head, and looked at it for a long time. Yes, it was okay. He had never thought about this kind of thing before, but now that it was not his original body, he had to take a closer look. The memory of Sui Sui said that his parents took him on a merchant ship and unfortunately encountered pirates at sea, and he was killed by the ruthless pirates. In the panic, he seemed to hear the pirates looking for a devil fruit. The only thing he brought from the ship was a box. This was also a box he picked up on the merchant ship in a panic. The box was not big, but it couldn't be devil fruit. But the most important thing now is to find a place to avoid. After all, this is the world of pirates, and any beast that comes out is enough to eat him up. System, is there a system? Is the system there? Carl called anxiously. In his opinion, travelers who travel through time must have cheats. When Carl's call echoed in the air, he felt a weak energy surge out of his body, as if in response to his request. A light and shadow suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, gradually condensing into a human-shaped blue illusory image. "Hello, Carl, I am Guoman System, and my mission is to help you survive well in this strange world." The voice of the Guoman System has a hint of coldness, as if it has been programmed. But fortunately, he can still understand this cheat. The literal meaning of the Chinese comic system should be related to the Chinese comic characters, and secondly, it should also be two-dimensional and so on. Fortunately, he usually likes to watch two-dimensional animation, and there are all kinds of animations in it. I don't say that the characters are familiar, but at least I know most of them. Although he now suspects that this is a prank played by Big Shots. Maybe there are many people watching him. A bad joke from the author. But now he has no ability to resist. And Mark, no, it's Carl now. Now that Carl has determined that there is cheat. So there was no time to open the system panel now. He quickly looked around, trying to find a shelter from the wind and rain, but since this was a desert island, how could there be such a thing as a house? He quickly glanced around and saw that the sky was getting darker. I quickly found a very strong tree and climbed up. The trees in the pirate world have to be said to be really tall. This one was picked at random. It looks like it must be at least as thick as 5 adults hugging each other. Fortunately, the tree was thick enough. Carl climbed up quickly and stopped about 10 meters above the ground. Sitting on the trunk of the tree, Carl held tightly to a thick branch with his right hand. His body could not stop trembling slightly. He looked at the dark night sky and the moonlight shining down. To be honest, he was a little afraid of heights. What functions does the system have? Carl's body was trembling with cold, but his eyes revealed curiosity and desire for the system. He wanted to know what this system could bring him. He nervously looked at the illusory image in front of him, expecting its answer, and at the same time carefully observed his surroundings. He didn't want to die here inexplicably before using cheat. "Hello host, I am the Chinese comic system. The system has templates for various Chinese comic game characters that you are familiar with." The voice of the Chinese comic system is as cold as ever. Hearing this answer, Carl's eyes shone with excitement. He knew that there were many fantasy and immortal characters in Chinese comics. If he could get this, he couldn't take off directly. After all, it is really difficult for an ordinary person without any abilities to survive in the world of pirates. He himself is also a person who loves Chinese comics, and he is extremely excited to have the template of Chinese comic characters in the world of One Piece. It also comes with various Chinese comic skills, talents and equipment. Guoman System continued to explain that the words of Guoman System are full of infinite possibilities. Carl's eyes were wide open, and he was even a little unbelievable. He thought that the Chinese comic template was powerful enough, but he didn't expect that he could also obtain various Chinese comic skills, talents, and equipment, which made him ecstatic. Doesn't that mean that he can also possess skills like Nine Yang Divine Art, Qi Body Origin, and Luku Immortal Thief? Because it consumes a lot of energy to bring the host to travel to the pirate world. The only lottery function left is now, and there can only be one ordinary lottery every month, and only one unspecified lottery every year. Guoman System then said, with a hint of regret in his words. To obtain more lottery draws and system functions, please host disrupt the main timeline of One Piece world as soon as possible. Carl immediately decided that he would disrupt the timeline of the pirate world so that he could get more system rewards. This allows him to survive better in this world. At the same time, Carl frowned slightly. Although it only had a lottery function now, which made him feel a little regretful, he knew that he had obtained a powerful system, which was enough for him to gain a foothold in the pirate world in the early stage. Carl's whole body suddenly relaxed and he leaned against the tree trunk, staring at the illusory image in front of him with bright eyes. His mood was difficult to calm down, and he knew that the quiet and peaceful days were about to leave him. Moreover, this Chinese comic system can provide him with the templates, skills, talents and equipment of Chinese comic characters. In this way, his chances of survival in the pirate world are greatly increased, and he can even make a name for himself. Chapter 2 Titan Carl suppressed his excitement and asked, "Then can you tell me what templates I have to choose from?" Of course, there are many templates, such as Yuan Tiangang in Painting Rivers and Lakes, Gai Ni in Qin Shi Mingyue, King Power and Wealth in Demon Fox Little Matchmaker, etc. Each template has unique skills and talents. As long as the host draws, if you find the right template, you can show great strength in the world of pirates. The template only allows the host to have the abilities of the anime character, but various moves and skills require the host to practice on its own to enhance its strength. It will not directly inherit the peak strength of the anime character. Carl's eyes sparkled with excitement. Although his ability needed to be exercised on his own, it was still better than knowing nothing. The system allows me to use several templates at the same time. If he could only use one template, he would have to choose it carefully, otherwise this wonderful opportunity would be wasted. Host can apply multiple panels at the same time without any impact. That's not bad. Various animation abilities can be used superimposed. By the way, system, do you have a gift package for newbies? Carl was a little confused, and then showed a look of doubt. After all, without the novice gift package, it would be very difficult for an ordinary person like him to survive on a desert island. Yes. Although traveling across time consumes a lot of energy, in order to quickly gain a foothold in the pirate world, the system has specially prepared a gift package for newcomers. Then the system will open the novice gift pack first. Carl said impatiently. Night gradually fell, and the cold wind howled by, so cold that Carl's lips turned purple. He clung to the tree trunk, his body trembling, trying to find any warmth. The roars of various beasts on the island kept coming, making him fearful, and he scanned his surroundings carefully. He understood that if he did not quickly gain the ability to save his life, tonight might be the end of his life. Congratulations to host for opening the novice gift package. A talent lottery, a skill lottery, and an unspecified lottery. System, give me all three. There is no time to hesitate now. Carl spoke a little anxiously, because he heard the footsteps of a beast running towards this side deep in the woods. He knew that the lottery might be his only chance. A huge golden carousel suddenly appeared in front of me. The golden light was flashing, and the various reward areas were clearly visible. Carl stared at the turntable, preparing to draw talent rewards. The carousel is marked with various talent options, including steel balloon, titan power, emaciation, etc., ranging from good to bad. Carl silently prayed in his heart, hoping that he would not be gifted with such a talent as being too thin. Congratulations host, you won the titan power. The sound of the system came, and Carl suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, as if a stone in his heart had been put down. Fortunately, he didn't get drawn, he was very thin. He seems to have some memory of the name of Titan Power, but he has almost forgotten the specific abilities. System, please open the introduction to Titan Power. He was somewhat eager to know what kind of power the talent he had just drawn could bring him. After all, the power of Titan sounds very powerful, and he can't even imagine the specific effects. The power of Titans comes from the world of domestic fairy tale animation. Adult Titans can reach a height of 10,000 meters. However, in the world of pirates, the power of Titans has been weakened by the rules of the world. But they still have the courage of thousands of people. You have the power of Titans. As long as you stand on the earth, you have unlimited physical strength, and can quickly heal all wounds in your body with the help of the power of the earth. The systematic explanation shocked Carl. At the same time, he also had some doubts about whether the ability of Titan power might be a bit over the top. System, what is the upper limit of this ability in the pirate world? The system seemed to know what Carl was thinking. Host, please wake up. The reason why you drew the power of Titan is completely for the novice benefit. This draw is considered a talent type unspecified draw. Ah. Oh, haha, is that so? Oh, my god. This means that when I combine this talent, I will have endless physical strength and powerful recovery capabilities. No, because the power of Titan is too powerful, it is a phased integration. The development progress can be viewed on the system panel. Ah. Okay. Carl was actually a little embarrassed, but he didn't expect that the system's ability to throw cold water should not be underestimated. But on the other hand, the power of Titan made him feel extremely excited and looking forward to it. He couldn't help imagining the powerful strength he would show in the world of pirates. System fusion talent. Carl couldn't wait, he wanted to experience it as soon as possible. After all, the roars on the island are getting closer and closer, and he is afraid that the beast will suddenly come here. He has no ability to protect himself, but will put himself in danger. As soon as he finished speaking, the Guoman system immediately started talent implantation. At that moment, Carl's body felt a tearing pain all over his body. The implantation of the Titan power talent instantly disrupted and reorganized his flesh and blood and bones in the body. Although the time was only a short minute, Carl felt as if a year had passed. He could clearly feel his blood boiling and his bones creaking, as if he was undergoing a test of life and death. Why does the system hurt so much? Can you block the pain? Carl gritted his teeth in pain. There is currently no function to turn off pain sensation. He wished it would end immediately. The pain of this tearing was really unbearable. But since the pain sensing function was not turned off, he couldn't make any sound now, so he had to grit his teeth and resist the pain in his body. He could feel the blood flowing down the tree trunk, and the air was filled with a faint smell of blood. This smell attracted more beasts from deep in the woods. They were attracted by the smell of blood and gradually surrounded Carl. Carl's forehead was soaked with sweat, but he still endured the severe pain unswervingly, knowing that this was to gain great strength. In that short minute of suffering, he kept telling himself to persist and not give up. He knew that only by going through all this could he survive in this cruel world of pirates. Finally, a minute passed, and the tearing pain dissipated, replaced by a powerful force. Carl felt a warm current surge through his body, filling his body with strength. Even the teeth in his mouth fell out one after another, and 40 new teeth grew on them. This is the mouth of a saint on Blue Star. The body also expanded from about 1.8 meters to 2.5 meters. From a distance, he looked like a little giant. He even has a feeling now that he can punch a hole in the sky and crush the earth with one kick, but he also knows that this is only caused by the sudden increase in strength. In fact, he does not have such power. Carl clearly felt the surge of strength in his body and the expansion of his muscles, making him full of confidence and strength. Wow! At this time, a huge white tiger nearly 10 meters long walked out of the woods. It was seen assuming a hunting posture and walking step by step towards Carl's tree. Apparently attracted by the smell of blood, Carl's eyes were fixed on the white Madara tiger under the tree. His feet stepped on the tree trunk, and his body was slightly arched, preparing for the upcoming battle. The tiger's huge body shimmered a faint white in the moonlight, but its body exuded a wild majesty. Its eyes were fierce and full of murderous intent, as if it wanted to tear Carl into pieces. Carl took a deep breath, tensed his body, and powerful power gradually erupted from his feet. The tree trunk under his feet began to tremble slightly, and the leaves fell one after another, as if responding to his thoughts. The blessing of the Titan's power made him feel like he was standing on an unshakable boulder, without any fear. The tiger approached slowly, its every step carrying an unparalleled pressure, and it was very patient with its prey. Carl clenched his fists and stared at the white tiger. He knew that only by defeating it could he spend the night smoothly, otherwise he might be eaten on the spot, but he clenched his fists and he knew that the identities of hunter and prey have changed now. Crack! Suddenly, the tiger accidentally stepped on a branch and made a crisp sound. Chapter 3 Baji Quan and Xiao Carl looked solemn. His eyes were instantly locked on the tiger's body, and his reaction was quick and accurate. Both feet stepped out instantly with the help of the tree trunk. The tree trunk was kicked out in a huge arc, and Carl's body rushed toward the tiger like a cannonball. The fist was like a sledgehammer, hitting the tiger's head hard with infinite power. In an instant, the giant tiger couldn't react at all. A dull sound came out, and the tiger was instantly knocked away and hit a big tree not far away. The tree trunks shook violently, shaking off all the leaves, and the air was filled with green. The white tiger lay on the ground and tried to get up several times to no avail. It was obvious that it had been seriously injured by Carl's punch. Looking from a distance, streams of blood began to flow from the struck head. Then the white tiger let out a painful cry and tried hard to control his limbs, trying to stand up. Wow! When the surrounding beasts saw the white tiger, the overlord of the forest, being knocked down by Carl with one punch, they knew that the two-legged beast was not someone to be trifled with, so they all fled the scene, and the surrounding area suddenly became quiet. Carl did not pursue him. After all, it was so dark. What if there was any danger in the woods? Slowly walking up to the tiger, through the white tiger's pleading eyes, one could clearly feel the tiger's despair and fear. Things happened so fast. Although Carl had not fully mastered the power of his body, he could only jump and punch normally, but he could feel that his current physical fitness was far beyond that of ordinary people, so the sudden increase in power caused him to every punch and kick has tremendous power. He felt the power surging within his body and realized that he was no longer an ordinary person, but an ordinary person with the gift of Titan power. Ha 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 ha. Carl smiled happily. It was the first time he experienced such a powerful power. He took a deep breath and stared at the seriously injured tiger again. Obviously this tiger no longer poses any threat to him now. Carl looked up and looked around. The forest he was in was still full of unknowns and dangers. Although the power of the Titans gave him a strong body, the dangers in the forest were far more than that. He had to find a place to rest as soon as possible. Come here, you are the first beast I encountered in this world. You are qualified to choose the next path. Carl thought for a while, but still didn't choose to kill it. Maybe he came from Blue Star and his thoughts haven't changed yet. When the white tiger heard these words, he immediately stopped wailing and was stunned for a moment. The huge head seemed a little cute for a while, but soon it limped and followed Carl. It made his choice. After all, it's very smart. Since I can't resist, I can only express my surrender. Carl found a clearing and let the tiger lie down here while he leaned on the tiger's back. He still hasn't finished drawing the lottery. Although only talent draws have become better with the support of the system, it does not mean that he looks down on ordinary draws. Carl leaned against the tiger. A flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. He remembered his Titan power, and a powerful force surged within him. Carl closed his eyes and concentrated on feeling the power. His body began to tremble slightly. After a brief period of warm blood, he found that his physical condition had actually improved. The system opens, my personal panel, he said to the system happily. Ding! Carl's personal panel appeared on the screen. Carl stared at the information on the screen, looking forward to improving his physical fitness. Host. Luke D. Carr Armament Hockey. None Observation Hockey. None. Conquerors Hockey. None Skills. None Talent. Titan Power, Fusion Degree 10%. Money. None Items. None Rating. Can barely protect myself on the sea, overall strength Rear Admiral. Carl was overjoyed when he saw the evaluation. He didn't expect that his strength would reach that of a Rear Admiral just by integrating the power of one Titan. And he didn't feel wrong. His strength had indeed improved a little. He also has a skill and an unspecified lottery. His expectations for these two opportunities have become stronger. He wants to know where his strength will reach after another lottery? The system begins to draw an unspecified lottery. Carl conducted the lottery with great anticipation. Congratulations to host for drawing the character template of Guoman Qin Shi Mingyue Gai Ni. It turned out to be Gai Ni from Mingyue in the Qin dynasty. Gai Ni's origin is unknown. He was trained in Ghost Valley, and his swordsmanship is superb. His unique skill, 100 Steps Flying Sword, is a combined attack move that can travel in all directions. Known as the best swordsman in the world, he enjoys the title of Swordmaster in the world. When he was young, he was the swordsmanship teacher next to Qin Wang Zheng. He made great contributions to Ying Zheng's unification of the 6 countries. He was known as the strongest swordsman in the empire and the first bodyguard beside Qin Wang Zheng. But later, he unexpectedly defected to Qin, taking his old friend's son Jing Tianming with him, and embarked on a thorny journey to avoid Ying Zheng's pursuit. Ha ha ha, Gai Ni's swordsmanship can be said to be top-notch. Just in time for the pirate world to see my great Eastern swordsmanship. He immediately thought about the possibility of giving hero templates to others. After all, what if he encountered a template he didn't want? After all, there will be many hero templates drawn in the future. If he doesn't want to use some templates, wouldn't it be a waste? System, can I give the hero template to others? Carl couldn't help but ask. Host, the hero template can be given to anyone, and you can take it back at any time. Carl was immediately relieved when he heard the system's reply. Knowing this answer, Carl breathed a sigh of relief. He decided to keep this hero template and wait for the right time to use it. After all, now he can fully activate the Titan's power through battle. After all, he can't bite off more than he can chew. The system starts the skill lottery. Baji Quan, Tai Chi Swordsmanship, Yi Jin Jing, 8 trigrams palms. Congratulations to host for drawing the skill Baji Quan. Okay, although I didn't draw anything like Tai Chi swordsmanship and Yi Jin Jing, Baji Quan is still okay. Isn't it often said that if you don't go out in Tai Chi for 10 years, you can beat someone to death in 1 year of 8th grade? Let me try what 8-level boxing is. The system uses Baji Quan. Suddenly, a string of words appeared from the roulette wheel in front of him and flew into Carl's mind one by one. He instantly understood all the moves of the 8th-level boxing, as well as the techniques for exerting force. Various moves kept popping up in his mind, and he quickly learned and memorized every detail. After getting started with 8th-level boxing, he felt that he could now clearly control every inch of skin on his body, and even control the growth of hair and nails. Is this the realm of a master? In the Chinese comics he knew, Grandmaster Huajin was an existence that could not be added to a feather or a fly could not land. Carl immediately began to try various moves on the spot. He moves his body quickly, turns nimbly, and performs a series of precise attack movements. Every movement was smooth and accurate, as if he had become a dancer, dancing with an invisible sword. The surrounding trees became his practice subjects. He waved his fists and knocked down one big tree after another. The sound of trees falling to the ground echoed in the forest, as if announcing his strength to the entire world. Carl's eyes exuded confidence. He has now fully mastered the essence of Baji Quan, Lu De Kai, but he is not yet proficient in using the moves. This powerful skill brought him an unprecedented sense of achievement and satisfaction. Don't say it yet, don't say it yet, Carl murmured to himself, his face full of excitement and pride. He realized that not only was the knowledge entering his mind, but the moves were also memorized in his body. He felt that every inch of his skin contained great strength and flexibility. Carl laughed, full of expectations for the future. He knows that he now has the strength to protect himself. Although Rear Admiral is not very strong in the pirate world, because he has the power of a titan, it is impossible to defeat him in a short time. Which of the Marine 6 styles is more important? Carl thought for a while. It should be the fast-moving Shaba, and the gorgeous move Tempest Kick. How did shaving come about? It takes 0.36 seconds to step on the ground dozens of times, right? Bang! The first time Carl stepped on the ground with all his strength, he directly stepped on a big hole in the ground and fell into it. He was not discouraged, but kept trying on the spot. Boom! After many experiments, he finally mastered shaving, but his sense of direction was still unclear, and the surrounding trees were knocked down by his unreasonable body. Pooh! After knocking down a big tree, he quickly climbed up from the leaves and spit out the leaves in his mouth. It's already getting late, let's talk tomorrow. After he thought about it, he quickly organized the tree trunks on the ground. After all, he needed a place to shelter from the wind and rain for a short time. He didn't want to sleep in the open. He directly drove the tree trunks into the ground to form a wall, and simply tied some tree trunks together with vines to form a simple door. In just 1 hour, Carl relied on his rough craftsmanship to build a simple 50-square-meter cabin in front of his eyes. Looking at this simple but warm shelter, Carl couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction and joy. This was a house he built with his own hands. Just in front of the cabin, he also built a simple shed for the white tiger to rest and shelter from wind and rain. After he finished doing this, he felt a little hungry. So he looked at the white tiger. No, it was already a partner, it couldn't eat it. Chapter 4 White Tiger. At this time, Carl observed the white tiger carefully and found that its skin was snow white, somewhat similar to the white tiger, one of the 4 mythical beasts in ancient Chinese legends. This reminded Carl of the beautiful scenery of his hometown, as well as his relatives and friends, but he knew that he could not go back now. So he decided to name the tiger White Tiger, which also represented his sustenance for his hometown and also meant that he would truly begin to integrate into the world of pirates. From today on, your name will be White Tiger. Carl reached out and touched Bai Hu's head with some nostalgia. The White Tiger nodded, obviously recognizing the name. Since they have become partners, it should be okay to let him go get some food and come back. White Tiger, go hunt for something and come back. After a short rest, the injuries on White Tiger's body were much better. The wound on his head had also completely healed, and he could move freely. When Carl asked him to hunt a prey, he immediately jumped out of the shed and headed deep into the jungle to search for traces of the prey. Carl watched the white tiger disappear into the dense woods. As expected of the pirate world, such a serious injury would be healed in a short time. Return to the cabin and start collecting logs and leaves to prepare a fire for warmth. However, he suddenly realized that he had no source of fire. Wait, how did he get the fire? He hesitated for a moment, and soon the primitive method of drilling wood to make fire came to mind. He remembered that he had seen a video, and the specific steps should be like this. So, without hesitation, he directly picked up a wooden stick, dug a small hole with a stone, then put some dry leaves on it, picked up another small branch, and rubbed it quickly with his left and right hands to make the stick rotate rapidly. After more than 10 seconds, sparks flew and the dead leaves were set on fire. Carl found the small flame and quickly brought more dead leaves and placed it on it. At the same time, he lay on the ground and blew the wind carefully, for fear that it would be extinguished by accident. With Carl's help, the flames grew brighter, and in a blink of an eye the fire was aroused. Carl looked at his work with satisfaction and became even more proud. He never expected to experience drilling wood to make fire. Ouch! At this moment, the white tiger also ran back with a 6-meter wild boar as big as a small truck in its mouth. Carl stared at the white tiger intently, looking at the wild boar in its mouth, and his saliva flowed out. After all, he has integrated the power of the titans, his body has experienced a second growth, and he has wasted a lot of energy just now, so the feeling coming from his stomach now is, very hungry. The white tiger gently placed the prey on the ground, stretched out its sharp claws and tore open the wild boar's belly with a few strokes. The internal organs flowed out, and the bloody internal organs exuded a fishy stench. Carl frowned, feeling a little disgusted when he saw this scene, and quickly waved the stinky smell in front of his nose with his hand. Ouch! When Carl saw the white tiger gesturing for him to eat, he said with a look of disgust, "I won't eat this, you can eat it." He quickly found a branch, dragged the wild boar to the other side and strung it up. Seeing that Carl refused to eat, Bai-Hu quickly lowered his head and chewed the internal organs. Carl set up a large shelf, placed the skewered wild boar on it, and then lit the bonfire so that the bonfire could fully burn. The tongues of fire jumped up, gradually roasting the wild boar until it became golden and attractive. The scent soon spread across the island, attracting the surrounding creatures. Ouch! Hearing this roar, the animals in the forest retreated one after another. They knew that this was a warning from the forest overlord, the white tiger. Soon the wild boar was roasted. He first pulled off one right leg and threw it to the white tiger. The white tiger caught the pig leg, lowered his head and wolfed it down for a while, his eyes shining with satisfaction. After all, he had never eaten cooked food before he had grown so big, and he didn't expect it to be so delicious. Carl then pulled off the other hind foot and started to chew on it. His teeth were now so good that he could crush even the bones. The meat was delicious and had a delicate texture. It was very delicious. With a satisfied look on his face, he speeded up his eating. Although there is no seasoning, it does have a refreshing fragrance. This may be a gift from nature to this island. The white tiger quickly ate up one of the wild boar's hind legs. The white tiger liked the taste. It immediately lay down next to Carl and looked at him. "Okay, I'll give you half of this." Carl knew by looking at it that it was not full, or that it liked the taste of cooked food. After all, it could not light a fire on the island. Carl used both hands to tear the roasted wild boar into 2 halves, and threw one half to the white tiger. Soon, Carl and the white tiger devoured the 6-meter-long wild boar. They ate with gusto, the meat juices stained the corners of their mouths, and smiles hung on their faces. Carl patted his stomach and relaxed his body with a satisfied expression. He picked up an unknown bone spur, carefully picked out the residue between his teeth, patted his belly and burped with satisfaction. After eating and drinking, Carl arranged for the white tiger to guard the shed at the door, while he entered the cabin and lay down on the bed he made. The bed was covered with some dry leaves. Although it is relatively simple, it is enough for him. He closed his eyes and felt his tired body relax. Gradually, he fell into sleep. When Carl fell into a deep sleep, a big man was rowing towards this side of the unnamed island in a small boat. The visitor was none other than Edward Newgate. Edward Newgate had joined the Rocks pirate by this time, and this night the ship encountered an undercurrent. By the time he discovered it, it was already too late, and he encountered a tornado again. He was caught off guard and was swept to the sea. It can be said that the house leaked and it rained all night. He could only temporarily board a small boat. When the sea calmed down, he had been blown to the island by the wind and waves. Fortunately, his pirate ship should not be far from here. Soon Newgate was ashore. The direction from Newgate to the island was on the other side of Carl, so he did not see the wooden house built by Carl. Newgate wielded his pheasant, chopped down a few trees, and built a simple bed and shed, which could barely keep out the wind and rain. Like Carl, he was longing for a good night's sleep after a hard night's work. Ouch! Early the next morning, Carl was awakened by the cry of a white tiger. He got up from the bed in a daze and groped toward the door. Opening the door, he saw a strong man standing outside the door wearing a white beret and holding a long knife that resembled the Qinglong Yanyue sword in his right hand. "Hey, I don't mean any harm," the strong man said with a smile and a rich voice. Carl immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't expect to meet other people on this desert island. He thought he was an aborigine on the island. "Who are you?" Carl asked curiously. In his memory, this island should be a desert island. But it is not ruled out that there are indigenous people on this island. After all, pirates are raging in the world of One Piece, and they may also be people who have fled. "I'm Edward Newgate. What's yours?" Edward Newgate smiled heartily. "You are Whitebeard." Carl was shocked, but he didn't realize that the person in front of him was Whitebeard. Although he felt a bit like the knife when he saw it, he didn't expect Newgate to be so young. Doesn't that mean it's still a long time before the plot begins? The Whitebeard of this period is not exactly the same as the Whitebeard of a few decades later. At this time, Whitebeard Newgate looked younger, so it was understandable that Carl did not recognize him for a while. Although Carl was an ordinary person when he time traveled, due to his gift of Titan power, his height has grown to 2.5 meters. Although this is far from the limit, he still looks very short in front of Newgate. After all, Newgate's height is 6 meters 6. Chapter 5 Whitebeard? Newgate. Newgate, you sit down first. Carl moved a stool out of the room, and then looked at Bai Hu. "White Tiger, go hunt for something and come back." The white tiger heard Carl calling it, glanced at Newgate, and then ran deeper into the forest. Because the white tiger also liked the smell of yesterday's barbecue, it had never eaten cooked food before, so it seemed impatient. Although the meal it had yesterday would save it from looking for food for 3 or 4 days, but who wants too much food? "Whitebeard, are you talking about me?" Newgate asked doubtfully while sitting on the petite stool. He has blonde hair now, so Whitebeard probably doesn't get along with him. Carl smiled and explained, "Haha, no, it just looks a bit like a friend of mine." Newgate nodded, which must mean he admitted his mistake. At the same time, he also noticed Carl's breath of life, which made him curious, because there is a resonance between strong people. In his opinion, people like Carl should not be aborigines, and this wooden house looks new. "Who are you?" Newgate asked out his confusion. Carl smiled slightly. "I was blown here by the wind and waves of the sea." Newgate didn't expect Carl to experience the same thing as him. "Haha, that's a coincidence, me too." "Oh, really? That's such a coincidence, ha ha ha." Carl also didn't expect that Newgate would be defeated by surfing. "Are you from a rare race?" On the one hand, Carl's life breath was indeed too strong, and on the other hand, he found that Carl's epidermis exuded a golden light. "Yes, I have Titan blood." Carl could only make up an identity for himself. "Titan? Grr, I've never heard of this race before." Then Carl and Newgate started chatting. While they were chatting, the white tiger had captured a titanoboa. It happily dragged its prey back, its whole body exuding an aura of victory. "Ouch!" The white tiger let out a majestic roar and ran back with a giant python more than 20 meters long in its mouth. The huge wound at 7 inches of titanoboa showed that the white tiger did not put in much effort. "Gu la 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 la. I'm really lucky today." Newgate's laughter echoed over the island. After chatting for a long time, he happened to be a little hungry. Carl expertly set up the rack and prepared to cut the giant python into 4 pieces. Newgate held a 4-meter-long knife to help him cut open the python's body easily. It's just a pity that there is no good wine in this situation. Edward Newgate loved drinking the most. He likes to enjoy good food and wine at the same time, but unfortunately there is no wine on this desert island. "Wouldn't it be a great thing for the two of us to meet?" Carl responded nonchalantly. He is not interested in the drinks in the pirate world because he comes from his hometown in China. Compared with the wine in his hometown, the wine in the pirate world is trivial, but he did not expect that he would fall for his trivial wine later. By the way, since you were blown up, what are your plans next? You won't be trapped on this island, right? Carl asked curiously. After all, there are no boats on the island now, and it is a desert island. No one should come here on weekdays, right? Newgate smiled awkwardly. After all, a strong man like him was defeated by the wind and waves. He pondered for a moment and then said, "Don't worry, my team members will find it here soon. Don't worry about travel." "Oh, that's fine." Carl suddenly thought of the world of pirates and the paper of life. "By the way, what year is it now?" Carl frowned slightly. He especially wants to know the current time point and whether Rock's pirate has been established now. And where is the sea area he is currently in? It's Sea Circle Calendar 1480. 1480. Doesn't that mean Whitebeard Newgate has joined the Rock's pirate? Carl quickly searched through the memories in his mind. The Battle of the Valley of the Gods should have been in 1484. That's good, there's still time. Since Rock's pirate still exists, he must participate in the Battle of the Valley of Gods. After all, his main mission is to disrupt the timeline of the pirate world. Moreover, since he has traveled to this point in time, why not make full use of this opportunity? By the way, are you a pirate? Although Carl knew it, he still asked in order to dispel his doubts. Newgate smiled and nodded. I'm from Rock's pirate, captain of the 2nd Division. As expected, Newgate had already joined the Rock's pirate during this period, and this should be the time when the Rock's pirate's power was at its peak. The current Grand Line is in chaos, with all kinds of pirate groups. Carl wants to go to sea with Newgate. He wants to become the captain of the Rock's pirate ship, but this requires Newgate to see his strength before Newgate can take him to Beehive Island. What do you think of me? Carl said with a serious face. Why do you want to go to sea? Newgate was a little surprised, looked at Carl, and quickly saw what he meant from his eyes. Carl didn't waste any time and kicked out his right foot as fast as lightning. Newgate saw Carl's right foot kicking and waved his left hand to block it. Snapped. Newgate felt the power under Carl's feet, and his body moved backwards, his expression slightly stunned. He didn't expect this young man to have such great power. Carl took advantage of Newgate's retreat and quickly jumped into the air. Taking advantage of the inertia in the air, he swooped down and slammed his right fist towards Newgate's head. Newgate stood up and raised his right fist to resist the power of the punch. However, Carl's fist was extremely fast and brought up a strong wind. The moment Newgate raised his fist, it hit Newgate's chest hard. Boom! A huge crash echoed throughout the island. Newgate was sent flying by the punch, and the sand was swept up, drawing a long arc in the air. Carl turned around in midair and landed firmly on the beach. His eyes are firm and confident, showing control of his power. Newgate shook his head and stood up. His chest was already numbing slightly, but his eyes were full of excitement. Haha, great! This power is really powerful. Newgate laughed and was full of admiration for Carl. After all, for a young man to be able to make him think highly of him in terms of strength was already remarkable. Carl also laughed. Both of them felt each other's strength and had a deeper understanding of each other's strength. Newgate, I am strong enough to go to sea with you. Carl suddenly spoke, his eyes revealing firm determination. Newgate was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then his expression became serious. If you want to go to sea, then I have to see if you are strong enough. Carl smiled and replied confidently, then let's try it. Well, since you are so confident, let's give it a try. Newgate said with a smile, because he didn't use his full strength just now, he also wanted to try Carl's strength. So Carl and Newgate walked to the shore, and the two prepared to have a real sparring match. The two stood face to face, and the momentum of the confrontation made the air thicken. Both of them were looking forward to this contest. In the blink of an eye, Carl's fist had already struck, but before the punch arrived, the airwave had already roared in front of Newgate, and then formed an astonishing shockwave, and turned into a violent wind that swept everything. In the flash of lightning, Newgate's thoughts were running. He jumped into the air, and flicked his right hand. Between the two of you, you punch and I kick, punching to the flesh. The ground beneath his feet cracked like a spider web, gravel flew out, and large craters exploded one after another. Carl actually lacks combat experience and is not yet proficient in body control, but he just can't resist the power of the Titans. But as long as he stands on the ground, his physical strength will continue to recover. Chapter 6 Decision. He just understood the Bajiquan yesterday, and now he displays his power perfectly in every move. Although Carl tried his best with every punch, his opponent was Edward Newgate, and he was still a young Edward Newgate. His strength was even worse, so he was still at a disadvantage. If Newgate hadn't stayed hand, he has already died. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had fought dozens of times, and Newgate was a little surprised. After all, although he had not used shock fruit yet, his strength was not something that an ordinary person could withstand. Newgate was a little shocked and couldn't imagine that this was the power that an 18-year-old human could possess. This guy Carl is definitely talented, and maybe his bloodline is not so rare, which makes Newgate want to recruit him. Although Newgate thought so in his heart, he was still very rude with his hands. He swung heavy punches one after another, with destructive power that swept everything. Carl's eyes widened, and before he could react, his body flew backwards. He was hit instantly and flew backwards into the woods, smashing through 3 big trees before stopping. As soon as Carl stood up, his face twitched, and then he couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. He felt the pain coming from his body. This was the first time in his history that he felt such pain. But because his body was close to the earth, he quickly felt a warm current rising from the depths of the earth wherever his body came into contact. It traveled throughout his body and was slowly healing his wounds. Newgate looked at Carl and vomited blood, and walked quickly to Carl. "Are you okay?" Newgate asked with a worried look on his face. After all, although Carl's skills were good, he had used all his strength just now, and he was afraid of knocking Carl out. Looking at Carl's chest, there was a big fist mark, but in Newgate's surprised eyes, the mark disappeared in an instant. "Haha, Newgate forgot to tell you. My resilience is also different from ordinary people. Come again." Carl, who was not a martial artist, immediately stooped forward, and instantly he was wrestling with Newgate again. Gu la la la. Young people are in good health. As for Bai Hu, he looked a little bored and yawned and fell asleep. So the battle went from day to night. Carl also learned a lot of offensive moves during this process, and gradually became more proficient in the 6 postures, shave. He found that although the system helped him understand the 6 postures instantly, it was still a little stiff in actual use. Newgate, on the other hand, was surprised by Carl's growth. From being in a hurry at the beginning to being able to do it with ease in the end, he was even on par with him. Although he was suspected of being a trick, it had to be said that Carl's talent was very strong. Newgate couldn't help but sigh that Carl had ushered in such a huge change in a short period of time, which indeed exceeded his expectations. Shockwave. Newgate exerted force on his waist and swung with all his strength. The space was like glass, shattering into pieces one after another, creating a shocking wave of air. Shock fruit. No, I can't stop it. Although Carl has fused the power of the Titans, shock fruit is known as the strongest paramecia because of Newgate. If you give it to an ordinary person, he may not be able to exert the full power of shock fruit. He did not resist Newgate's blow, and his body fell hard to the ground, creating a human-shaped crater. "Okay, that's it for today. I recognize your strength." Newgate has already admired Carl. In his opinion, having such strong strength at such a young age is indeed commendable. Then it was the same operation, but it was a little hard for Bai Hu. After eating, there were waves of snoring coming from the wooden house. A speechless night. In the early morning, the sun shines through the dense woods on the island, illuminating Carl's room. He just got up from the bed, yawned, felt a breath of fresh air, and took a deep breath with a satisfied look. Just as he was leaving the room, Newgate suddenly came up. "Carl, try this, shock fist." Newgate made a fist with his right hand and punched forward with a powerful punch. Crack. A deafening bang pierced the air, and the space in front exploded like shards of glass. Well done. However, Carl did not show weakness. He waved his fist and rushed towards Newgate. Although the two people had not actually contacted each other during this attack, a loud sound was heard. The ground they stepped on instantly cracked like a spider web, and a huge wave of air came out. The surrounding trees, which were hundreds of meters high, were lifted up by this airwave, and were lifted out by the powerful air current. The collision of the powers of Carl and Newgate inspired a violent storm of power. The duel between them was like thunder and lightning, full of endless power and sparks. Every collision of fists and feet brought strong vibrations, as if the entire island was shaking. After their duel stopped, Carl wiped the sweat from his forehead and asked breathlessly, "After fighting for a while, I felt very comfortable." "You're not bad either. You recovered in one night." Edward Newgate was a little envious of Carl's physique, but he didn't expect his strength to recover so quickly. In fact, what he didn't know was that Carl recovered his strength in just 1 hour after the battle, instead of taking all night. Just when they stopped fighting, there was a wave on the sea level. Carl and Newgate looked at the sea level at the same time, and a large ship sailed towards the sea in the distance. Newgate took a closer look and saw that it was his men who were looking for him. Because Newgate's team members had Edward Newgate's paper of life, after last night's storm, they immediately discovered that Captain Newgate was missing, so they immediately followed the direction of the paper of life. "Look, it's Captain Newgate." The pirates on the ship took telescopes and immediately informed other pirates. "Come closer." The players in Newgate are very happy. After all, life in Newgate is still very good to them. "Okay, kids, let's have a party. Goo la 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 la." Newgate shouted with joy as the pirate ship approached the shore. "Ouch!" The pirates on the ship responded immediately. "It's time for a party," Newgate announced passionately again. The pirate group docked, and some pirates came down first to ask about Newgate's situation. The other pirates happily moved tables, chairs, benches, wine and food from the ship. The pirates placed barrels of wine on the beach. "Celebrating our safe reunion here, and celebrating Carl joining us soon. Cheers." Newgate and Carl toasted each other and drank to their heart's content. Dry. The pirates also toasted one after another. The sea breeze blew by, carrying the aroma of wine and laughter. The sun gradually rose, shining on Newgate and his companions, burning like their fighting spirit. All the pirates were sitting together. They were either slaves who were once bound, criminals abandoned by the world, or adventurers pursuing power and wealth. They chased the ocean of freedom, and regardless of life or death, they dared to challenge the shackles of the world. Wine flowed amidst everyone's laughter, and a happy atmosphere filled the air. Just focus on the joy and friendship of the moment. Carl looked at all this and couldn't help but smile. He looked at Newgate and his companions with a vision of the future rising in his heart. The sun shone on Carl's face, illuminating his firm gaze. Now that he has come to the pirate world, he should enjoy life as much as he wants. In order to achieve this goal faster, he needs to rewrite the pirate world as soon as possible. Timeline, so that you have enough strength to be a free-spirited person. Chapter 7. Going to sea at the banquet. Carl pulled over an empty wine barrel, sat relaxedly on it, and asked Newgate, "Who are the forces on the sea now?" Yesterday, he just briefly talked about the current time and what happened after Newgate joined Rocks. As for the forces on the sea during this period, he had not had time to ask. He doesn't know much about the pirate groups in this era. He only knows that the Rocks pirate is the strongest. Since he wants to join the Rocks pirate, he must find out if there is any pirate group that can compete with the Rocks pirate. Newgate turned around and replied with a smile. There are currently 2 pirate groups that can compete with the Rocks pirate. One is the Giant Pirates, they are all composed of giants, and the other is the X-Pirates. Captain X has a touch of Oz's blood in him. In recent years, only these 2 pirate groups can be called the real opponents of Rocks pirate, and other small pirate groups have attached themselves to the 3 of them. Hearing the news, Carl became excited. It seems that the sea is not lonely yet. I should be able to find my opponent soon after I go out. After all, after yesterday's fight, Titan's power ushered in a deeper integration, further enhancing his strength. He raised his glass, took a big gulp of wine, and said with a smile. What he desires most now is a fierce battle between life and death. Since these 2 pirate groups can compete with the Rocks pirate, there must be many strong ones among them. Newgate nodded in agreement. You are right, there are still many masters in these 2 pirate groups, but one pirate group alone is not scary to us Rocks pirate. Newgate interjected. It's just that the 2 pirate groups joined forces not long ago, which resulted in the current 3-legged situation. He added with a smile, But they don't have any advantage in front of us, Rock's pirate. Newgate's face was filled with confidence in his strength. After all, they were the strongest. Carl nodded in agreement. Although he knew that he might still be inferior to the top experts, he would not be afraid of the challenge. He believes that he can compete with these powerful opponents in future battles. Maybe it's the blessing of the Titan's power. His heart revealed the desire and excitement for fighting. The party has been going on all day, and it seems that it is impossible to sail today. A speechless night. Early the next morning, Carl and the White Tiger boarded the boat with Newgate and sailed towards Beehive Island. Carl's mind kept wandering during the voyage. He joined Rock's pirate not only for wealth and devil fruit, but more importantly to seek his future. He knew that the Rock's pirate's reign would not last long, and he had to prepare for his future in advance. Whether it's establishing your own pirate group, being a lone ranger, or establishing a family like Charlotte Linlin that is connected by blood. In short, no matter which way, he must start planning. He was actually able to realize that with just his own strength and the blessing of some templates, after all, the system had already stated that the power obtained could not exceed the upper limit of strength in the pirate world. It is absolutely impossible for him to overthrow the world government by himself. Such an idea seems too naive and unrealistic just thinking about it. After all, the world government has ruled the pirate world for 800 years. He dare not say that he will definitely be able to overthrow the rule of the world government, and the pirate world has a lot of black technology. If the ship capsizes in the gutter, it will be in trouble. He can only do his best to disrupt the timeline first, and then wait for the protagonist to appear. After all, he didn't want to die young. He decided to start small and try his own strength first. If it succeeds, it will be a huge breakthrough. If it doesn't succeed, he still has this backup to rely on. After all, risks cannot be put in one basket. He needs to be prepared to ensure that his future can develop smoothly. All the pirates on the ship were surprised by the arrival of the White Tiger. They did not expect that this huge tiger would also become their sailing partner. But Carl knew the strength and loyalty of the White Tiger well. He regarded the White Tiger as his guardian, friend, and his longing for his hometown. Carl was very excited as the ship sailed on the sea. He knows that there will be endless adventures and challenges waiting for him ahead. What he doesn't know is that being dominated by Rock's pirate is not a good situation for Marine. Marine has already been informed by insiders that Newgate is going to sea alone, and they do not want Rock's pirate to continue to grow. Therefore, they sent Kong to lead a fleet to encircle Whitebeard, trying to prevent the development of the Rock's pirate in this way. Carl didn't know all this, and he was still looking forward to and excited about the adventure he was about to face. After all, he has never experienced such freedom. When he was at Blue Star, he was a social worker doing 996 every day. He had not experienced such a free scenery for a long time. He held the handrail of the boat tightly, feeling the sea breeze blowing on his face, and his heart was filled with the longing for freedom. As the ship moves forward, the sea gradually reveals its boundless vastness, and a vast blue panorama is visible. Carl knew that his adventure had officially begun. Full of courage and determination, he will take the first step into the unknown sea. The road ahead will not be smooth, and he knows that he will face various difficulties and dangers. But he is not afraid, because he believes that with systematic help, he will reach the top. Carl stared at the sea level in the distance, a firm determination igniting in his heart. He believes that he will be able to create his own legend. A few days ago, Naval Headquarters. There was silence in the conference room. Marshal Hill sat in a high position with a sullen face, his eyes revealing his fear and dissatisfaction with the Rock's pirate. This siege of Whitebeard is led by Kong. Marshal Hill's voice was low and stern. We can no longer allow the Rock's pirate to continue to grow. We must take action. The Marine executives in the conference room nodded in agreement. They knew that Whitebeard was the core strength of Rock's pirate. Only by destroying Whitebeard could the strength of Rock's pirate be truly weakened. Kong stood up, saluted a military salute, and said firmly, "I hope this operation can be resolved satisfactorily, so that Rock's pirate can feel the justice of our Marine." Marshal Hill nodded. "Let's go, we must complete the mission." After receiving the order, Kong immediately led the Marine fleet to set sail. Accompanying him are his cronies Garp, Sengoku, and Suru, the elite of the Marines, each possessing the strength and combat experience of the vice admiral. The Marine fleet was moving rapidly on the sea, and their target was an unknown desert island. This desert island was where Whitebeard stayed briefly. Marine learned the news through intelligence and decided to encircle and suppress Whitebeard on his return route. However, Marine did not know that this siege would bring greater fear to them. They didn't expect that Carl's strength would be so difficult and would bring a heavy blow to their plan against rocks. They thought that this operation would hit Newgate to pieces, but they did not realize that what they were about to face would be an unprecedentedly fierce battle. Kong stood on the bridge, looking at the sea ahead, full of confidence and determination. He believed that he and his Marines could successfully complete the mission and completely eliminate Newgate. However, they did not know that Newgate was also approaching them on this vast sea. The two forces are about to collide in this boundless sea, and an earth-shattering battle is about to begin. Chapter 8 Marine attack. The pirates led by Newgate on the sea are heading towards Beehive Island. During the voyage, Carl had many thoughts. He imagined the battle with the giant soldier pirates and the ex-pirates, thinking about how to overcome their advantages and find a way to defeat them. After all, after hearing the introduction, he knew that the giant pirates and the ex-pirates were pirate groups composed of giants. He had never really seen a giant. The wind from the sea gently blew over his face, bringing with it the salty taste of the ocean. He felt the rocking of the ship and enjoyed the freedom of sailing. He knows that his pirate legend begins from this moment. Carl was sitting on the bow of the boat, holding a fishing rod in his hand and fishing intently. He found that he fell in love with fishing. Every time a fish bit the hook, he felt excited. The sun shone on his body, reflecting his resolute face. The sea breeze ruffled his hair, carrying a light salty smell, making him feel peaceful and free. Suddenly, the power of the Titans gave him excellent perception capabilities, a bit similar to observation hockey. After sensing Marine in front of him, he stood up and accidentally knocked over the bucket containing fish next to him. The fish in the bucket rushed to pat his own body. Water droplets fell on him, soaking his trousers, but he didn't care because his attention was attracted by other things. "What's wrong, Carl?" Newgate sat in the middle of the deck, raised the wine gourd, and took a big sip of wine. When he saw Carl standing up suddenly, he looked confused and asked quickly. "I think first feel Marine," Carl said with some surprise. After all, the second half of the Grand Line can be said to be Marine's grave. Marine who has no strength can be said to be dead when he comes here. It is not as easy for Marine to get here as it was at the beginning of the original work. After all, the three overlords in this period, but no one is afraid of Marine. Maybe it's the talent brought by the power of the Titans. His perception ability is different from ordinary people, similar to observation hockey. Even better than observation hockey in some aspects. Marine? Newgate put down his wine glass in some disbelief, but Carl's words were definitely not unreasonable. He immediately stood up and instantly released the powerful observation hockey. Which direction? He sensed it and stared into the distance. It looked like they were about to get in contact with each other. It had been a long time since he had played against Marine, so he seemed to be slacking off. "Oh, it's an old friend here." A smile appeared on Newgate's face. After he released observation hockey, he immediately sensed Admiral Kong, Garp and Sengoku in the distance. "Boys, get ready to fight," Newgate shouted excitedly. After all, it had been a long time since he had fought against Marine. "We have guests." His voice echoed throughout the ship, and everyone immediately tensed up, preparing for the coming battle. The atmosphere on the ship instantly became tense. This was not the first time they faced Marine's encirclement and suppression. Fighting Marine would make them even more excited. After all, pirates and Marines are at odds with each other on the sea, right? Carl clenched his fists in his hands, his eyes flashing with dazzling light. He knew that this would be his first battle with Marine in this world. "My friends, prepare to fight." Newgate's voice boomed throughout the ship, and the crew immediately geared up for battle. Their fighting will ignited with flames, and their eyes flashed with frightening light. "An enemy is coming, prepare quickly." A pirate standing on the lookout had seen the Marine fleet approaching them in the distance. "Cannon, pull out the cannon quickly." Pirates at the squad leader level command the rest of the pirates. Suddenly, in this calm sea, Newgate's pirate members divided their labors and cooperated in an orderly manner, and everyone was completing their tasks quickly. At the same time, on the bow, Carl and Newgate stood at the front of the deck, staring at the marine ahead. "How's it going? I'll fight Marine soon." Newgate knew that this was supposed to be Carl and Kong's first encounter. "Haha, I've been looking forward to this day," Carl answered with a smile, but his heart was full of expectations. When he came to this world, he had always been eager for the opportunity to fight against the top powerhouses, and now that it had finally arrived, he would not let this opportunity go. And his mission is to disrupt the timeline, so he will inevitably fight Marine. If Newgate happens to be present, there will be no danger. His eyes were firm, and the desire for fighting was burning in his heart. He felt that he was more and more eager to fight now. "How about it? Leave it to me. I want to give it a try." Carl had already seen Kong's face, but he didn't expect Kong to be so young. "It's okay with me, as long as you can handle it." Whitebeard agreed without hesitation. He was full of confidence in Carl's strength. He had fought against Carl. Although Carl's strength was a little worse than him, Carl's physical strength and endurance were much better. For Whitebeard, it doesn't matter who he fights against, but for Carl, this will be his first truly top-level opponent in this world. Kong's current strength is at the Admiral level, and he knows that he may not be able to survive many attacks against Kong. But tension and excitement were intertwined in Carl's heart. He knew that this would be a fierce battle and a moment for him to prove his strength. He is very eager to know how far he is from the top experts in the world. The wind in the sea became more and more rapid, and the shadow of the battle enveloped the sea. They are facing a fateful battle. It just so happened that he also wanted to see where his current strength was in the world. Because the system is only a comprehensive evaluation, he wants to see if there is any aspect that can exceed his upper limit in one aspect. "I'll go first," Carl roared excitedly, and then jumped from the deck into the air, charging up power with his right hand. Whitebeard frowned slightly as he looked at the approaching Marine fleet in the distance. He knew that his opponent this time was no ordinary person. Admiral Kong led Garp Sengoku to catch him personally, and his overall strength should not be underestimated. "Everyone, be careful, this is no ordinary Marine," Whitebeard said in a firm tone. His words are like a spur, inspiring everyone. "It's Captain Newgate. Don't worry, it's not the first time Captain has fought with Marine. Marine, come here." The atmosphere on the ship became tense instantly, and everyone could feel the urgency. Shocking fist. Carl jumped in the air with a solemn expression, took a deep breath, gathered all his strength and punched out. He simulated some shock fruit power during the night and integrated it into his own strength. Although there was a big gap between him and shock fruit, he had already integrated some of the shock fruit power into his boxing style. His fist quickly swung forward, and the wind roared with a vibrating force. Kong stood at the bow of the boat, his brows furrowed, and he immediately sensed something was wrong. He quickly ran to the bow, punched out his charged fist, and met Carl's fist. Boom! The two fists were not in direct contact, but the collision of the fists caused a huge wave of air. The sea surface was instantly rough, and the people on the deck felt unsteady. "Who is this guy? Why does it smell like shock fruit? Is it the lower fruit of shock fruit?" Carl was not mentioned at all in his message. Where did he come from and be such a powerful pirate? As the resourceful general, Sengoku is only a vice admiral, but his strength is close to that of an admiral. "This person is probably Newgate's target," Sengoku said in a deep voice that in his opinion, Newgate would not do anything that was not relevant to him. Indeed, Newgate does not come to this island for no reason. Garp added that at this time, Garp had not seen the true darkness of Marine and was a little careless. What they didn't know was that Newgate also came to this island by mistake, but this issue was no longer important. Carl has used moonwalk to fly quickly to the front of the warship. Kong knew that this was not the time to think about these issues. The enemy was already in front of him. Meteor fist, broken. Kong now has to deal with his attacks. As for his origin, you can find out later. Chapter 9 Battle with Kong. Kong clenched his fists, and armament hockey flowed through them. Fist to fist, black and golden light entwined together, erupting with amazing destructive power and strange phenomena. During the battle, Carl felt that the power of Kong's fist was like facing a mountain, and the strength was far beyond his imagination. At the same time, he began to realize armament hockey. However, it was rare to fight against a top powerhouse, and he couldn't let this opportunity pass him by. He subconsciously adjusted his posture and used all his strength to meet Kong's fist. The two fists collided together again in an instant, releasing a dazzling light. A huge shock wave spread from the collision point to the surroundings, and the air seemed to be shattered. Some of the pirates and marines on the ship were knocked down by the shockwave and could not stand firm, while those who could fly were already fighting hard, and the waves rolled on the sea. The marine fleet quickly approached, seeing that the two forces were about to engage in a large-scale battle. The pirates on the ship were ready and waiting for Newgate's command. "Come on!" Newgate shouted, and the crew immediately rushed to the marine's deck, and the battle began. The pirates and marines instantly started fighting. At the moment of the battle on the sea, the light of swords and flames intertwined, and the sound of cannons and screams intertwined. "Garp Sengoku, long time no see." Newgate laughed. He also had some itchy hands. He didn't have enough fun on the island and happened to bump into two friends. "Newgate, you can't run away this time." Sengoku looked calm, and immediately transformed into Zone, phantom beast species, human fruit, Buddha's great kingdom form. There has always been a special tacit understanding between him and Sengoku. Playing against each other has long become a habit, a tacit understanding without words, and it was Sengoku who was chasing Newgate after Rocks disbanded. Newgate waved the pheasant knife in his hand, and the sword energy quickly shot through the air like a crescent moon. Sengoku and Garp quickly counterattacked and coordinated their attacks to respond to Newgate's attack as quickly as possible. The figures of the three people were intertwined, the swords and swords were shining, the fists and kicks were intertwined, and the battle scene was extremely fierce. The battle between Newgate, Sengoku, and Garp also became increasingly fierce. Newgate's power made Garp feel unable to resist, but Garp persisted and used his own physical skills to fight back. After the battle continued for some time, Newgate suddenly unleashed his shock fruit ability. He roared, and the haki on his body instantly burst out with powerful power. Big earthquake. Newgate's fist smashed into Garp, and a huge wave of energy swept over him, destroying everything around him. Garp was knocked away by Newgate's punch and fell into the sea in the distance. Sengoku looked worried and quickly slapped Newgate with his golden palm to interrupt his subsequent attack. Shockwave. Newgate swung his pheasant sword, and a green sword light rushed toward Sengoku. Vomit. Garp spit out a mouthful of seawater, quickly came out of the sea, and ran towards Newgate. This melee has become extremely fierce, and everyone is trying their best to achieve their goals. However, the most eye-catching figures on the battlefield were those two figures. The fists of Carl and Kong kept colliding, airwaves rose one after another, and the sound of explosions in the air was endless. Kong's eyes became serious, and his heart was full of vigilance. This young man's power was beyond his expectation. Although he had not yet learned how to use haki, he found that this young man seemed to be practicing tricks on him. Carl was focused and devoted to the fight, and he could feel the power of each punch increasing. But he also knew that he was about to be overwhelmed. Kong was really not that strong. Now he was just resisting with difficulty and couldn't even fight back. However, it was impossible for Kong to take him down in a short time. He had to take advantage of this opportunity. Take this opportunity to quickly understand armament haki. The two people kept moving in the air, intertwining beautiful and cruel battle scenes. Their fists were like meteors, tearing apart the sky and leaving people stunned. However, this battle is far from over. Both sides are doing their best and have no intention of backing down. Every punch they throw is full of determination, and they never give up easily. In this fiery battle, Carl and Kong both sense each other's strength and determination. As time goes by, the smell of gunpowder on the battlefield becomes stronger and stronger, and this battle has attracted everyone's attention. Everyone held their breath, watching every move of these two strong men, looking forward to the final winner. This is a peak showdown at sea, a battle between brave men. Only the strongest can be invincible. At this moment, both Carl and Kong silently vowed to win this battle no matter what the cost. The entire battlefield instantly became chaotic, and the smell of blood filled the air. The pirates on the ship fought with all their strength, and they fought with their lives for freedom. "Carl, be careful." Newgate's voice suddenly sounded, Carl quickly turned around, and a sword light struck instantly. Carl dodged urgently, but his shoulder was still scratched by the tip of the sword, and blood immediately stained his sleeves red. But it was a marine swordsman who attacked him while he was distracted. Carl gritted his teeth. Although he was covered in injuries, his eyes were burning with excitement. At this moment, he couldn't back down and had to try his best. He had already been unable to defeat Kong, and now he was injured again. He knew that he couldn't hold on for much longer. Although he still had physical strength, his physical condition was gradually unable to withstand Kong's moves. Wails came from all over his body. After all, he was not standing on the ground now, so don't think about it. I am relying on the power of the earth to restore my physical condition. He could only use his Marine 6 styles, shave, and launched a fierce aerial duel with Kong. The collision of physical skills echoed in the air, and the two figures flew back and forth like the wind. Carl's boxing skills became more and more fierce, his attacks became more and more sharp, and Kong gradually felt the pressure. Kong felt the strength of the young man in front of him growing, and he felt a little uneasy in his heart. After all, he was an admiral, but he felt that this young man's strength was rising little by little, and he was afraid of some unexpected changes. Carl's offensive became more and more fierce, and Marine 6 style's moves were like a violent storm, constantly attacking Kong. Kong didn't hold back, and a heart-shaking roar instantly erupted in the air. Marine deck. The sword energy streaked across the sky like lightning, and the air seemed to freeze. The battle between Newgate and Sengoku and Garp was also in full swing, and the battlefield was filled with the smell of smoke and fire. This is a life and death struggle in which everyone goes all out and leaves no room for chance. Kong felt something was wrong. When he looked at the situation on the field, he knew that this mission would probably end in failure. He didn't expect that there would be a strong man like Carl on Newgate's ship. Although Carl's strength is not strong, his immune-to-death physique is as tenacious as a little strong one. It is indeed not something that can be solved in a short time. Carl's strength is enough to contain him, but Newgate's strength has not yet been fully demonstrated. Sengoku and Garp could only compete with Newgate, but could not defeat it, watching Marine on the field fall every moment. He knew that there was no way out at this point, and he had to find a way to end this as soon as possible so that Marine's losses could be minimized. Chapter 10 Understanding Armament Hockey. Kong took a deep breath and decided to defeat Carl first. He did not hesitate to use the 6 styles he had understood. Broken Star. His figure soared into the air like a gust of wind, and the fist covered by armament hockey hit Carl like a meteor. A huge punch carrying the aura of destruction quickly approached Carl, and the punch had already hit before the fist got close to him. The energy fluctuations in the air became more and more intense, and even the clouds in the sky seemed to be torn apart by this force. Facing Kong's fierce attack, Carl's eyes flashed with a dignified look. He knew that he couldn't take it hard, otherwise he might not be able to fight for long, because he was not standing on the ground now, and his physical strength was not recovering as quickly as expected. It can be clearly seen that the physical strength is being lost rapidly. He knew that Kong had used all his strength, and if this punch was hit, the consequences would be disastrous. Carl quickly moved around and turned into an afterimage, nimbly avoiding Kong's attacks while constantly getting closer to Kong. After Carl got close to Kong, he counterattacked with Marine 6 styles without showing any signs of weakness. The blue light thrown by Tempest Kick instantly filled the sky. The battlefield instantly became more chaotic. The shadows of swords and fists intertwined, creating sparks from the collision. The figures of the two people kept intertwining, and the explosive power of the moment was even more dizzying. At the same time, Kong de Kong witnessed his Marine's disadvantage becoming more and more obvious in front of Newgate's men, and he couldn't help but feel a little sad. These are the elites of Marine. He knew that the consequences of continuing to entangle would be tragic, which Marine did not want to face. They needed to evacuate this battlefield. After all, with Carl's restraint, their plan to round up Newgate had failed. While making a quick decision in his mind, he jumped up, stepped into the air, and kicked his right foot downwards. His feet were like a meteor falling to the ground, unstoppable. "Well done!" Carl shouted low, his expression a little solemn. The power of this blow should not be underestimated. He concentrated all his strength into his fist, condensing an astonishing force. Carl roared. Collapse of the mountain. He used the experience gained from destroying dozens of mountains on the island to deliver a deafening punch. The moment their fists and feet met, a loud noise suddenly sounded in the sky. This blow lowered the sea level by tens of meters, and Carl was hit by Kong's violent power and was instantly knocked into the sea. The water splashed and the waves rolled, and Carl quickly sank into the deep sea. At this moment, he found that his fist had become extremely black. Apparently unknowingly, he completed the mastery of armament hockey. Just as he opened his mouth to laugh, a wet and salty smell told him that he was now in the sea. His consciousness clearly told him that he might die here if he didn't get out, so he quickly swam upstream. At this moment, he felt severe pain all over his body. He turned his head and looked around his body. His exposed skin was bruised and purple, and there were bruises everywhere. It turned out that he had been so seriously injured without knowing it. If his physique hadn't been different from ordinary people, he might have died on the battlefield. Carl gritted his teeth tightly and swam hard up, towards the bright sea. He knew that only by returning to the sea could he have a chance to participate in this battle again. He wanted to fight Kong for a while longer. He wanted to try out how much his strength would improve after using armament hockey. He didn't want to waste this opportunity. After all, the number of fights against such a strong person is very rare. Kong realizes that Carl is about to return to the sea level. After Kong breaks away from the battle, he immediately attacks Newgate. Because he knew that if he wanted to end the battle, he had to repel Newgate quickly. Carl was just knocked into the sea by him. From what he saw, he could clearly feel that Carl was swimming up quickly. Kong took action, flying behind Newgate, trying to sneak attack Newgate before he looked this way. Although the above things may sound like a lot, they only happen in a few seconds. A powerful and heavy punch hit Newgate directly. The speed and power tore through the air, almost distorting the space, and a violent explosion sounded. Such a strong punch directly scattered the gathering clouds in the sky. Sure enough, because Kong's battle ended a little too quickly, Newgate took Kong's heavy punch with his back before he could react, and then flew back to the pirate deck. Retreat. He immediately ordered the team to retreat quickly. Their battle ended a bit suddenly, but Kong knew that in this dangerous new world, pirates were generally stronger than marines. He did not want to see his men suffer greater casualties in this battle, not to mention that the mission could no longer be completed. And the longer they delay, the worse it will be for them, because Rock's pirate support may arrive at any time, and he can't gamble with Marine's life, haha. The Marine fleet quickly sailed away from the battlefield, leaving only Newgate and his men in the sea. Newgate did not pursue, knowing the battle was over. He rubbed the deep red fist mark on his chest. Looking at the Marine fleet drifting away, he showed a proud smile. Kong, let's fight next time, he shouted loudly, his voice echoing on the sea. The Marines present also retreated to the Marine ships, and then the entire fleet quickly sailed back. Although Newgate hasn't fought enough, he doesn't want to continue fighting Kong. After all, Kong is coming this time with elite Marines, and the pirates under his banner have suffered heavy casualties. When he saw Kong retreating, Newgate did not pursue him, but just waved a shocking fist as a farewell. A huge wave of 100 meters was set off across the sea level and hit Kong. Kong had already sensed that Carl was about to reach the sea level, so he ordered the team to quickly leave the battlefield while continuously swinging heavy punches to offset the waves. I miscalculated this time. I didn't expect there was such a powerful person on Newgate's ship. Why was there no information before? Kong looked regretful. He knew the reason for this failure, mainly because there was a strong young man on Newgate's ship. The atmosphere on the battlefield gradually subsided, leaving only the crashing of the waves and the howling of the wind. Carl was still swimming desperately in the sea. With perseverance and determination, he finally managed to break out of the water. He took a sharp breath, feeling the fresh sea breeze, and his whole body trembled with excitement. This time, I will make them pay the price. He made up his mind and prepared to rejoin the fight. He flies towards the battlefield, carrying anger and determination, ready to fight Kong again. But what Carl didn't expect was that when he wanted to join the battle again, Kong's fleet had already gone far. He looked at the fleet as it drifted away. He could only return to the deck and shook his head helplessly. Don't worry, there is still a chance, Newgate said comfortingly. Then let's settle the score with them next time. Carl leaned on the white tiger's back. Hiss. It's not an ordinary pain. When he was relaxed, the severe pain in various parts of his body had been reflected to his nerves. Victory. Young ladies, let's have a party. When Newgate saw that Kong and the others had evacuated, he knew that they had won the battle, so he ordered his pirates to hold a banquet to celebrate their victory. Chapter 11. A little famous, Polaporu. A phone bug suddenly rang on Marshall Hill's desk at Naval Headquarters. Hello, Marshall Hill? After Kong got out of the battle, he immediately called Marshall Hill with a phone bug. Hey, is it Kong? How's the situation? Marshall Hill had been waiting for Kong's call. When he found out that it was Kong, Yudu picked it up without hesitation. Are there many casualties? Marshall Hill's first sentence after receiving the call was to inquire about the situation and casualties. Because in his opinion, no matter what, it was Rock's second team captain Newgate, and he also owned shock fruit. Some casualties were normal, and he didn't want the damage to become too big. Even because it was in the second half of the Grand Line, Rock's pirate could come to support at any time. He didn't want to lose his wife and lose his troops. If Newgate didn't catch him, but instead included Kong, Marine's overall strength would be weakened. Marshall Hill's plan failed. Kong frowned and sat in the warship's office with a disappointed look on his face. The office was quiet except for Kong's heavy breathing. He felt a little depressed. Newgate was able to escape, but he was powerless. Although it was due to an accident, he couldn't forgive himself. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. On the way to capture Newgate, there was a very powerful person on his ship. He reported to Marshall Hill, hoping to get some useful information. With my full strength, although I can kill him in a short time, the others will be in less danger. After all, there is still Newgate. Kong's solemn tone revealed his respect for the young man Carl's strength. This man's strength far exceeded his expectations, which made him feel extremely frustrated. Oh, do you have any information about him? Marshall Hill said with some surprise. After all, according to the information given by Marine's informant, Rock's pirate did not have this person. This person suddenly appeared because their information was not in place. Kong scratched his head. He first searched the room for the recently issued reward order, but did not find Carl's presence. At present, we can only regard him as a newcomer who has not yet gone to sea, but for a newcomer to have such strong strength, it is nothing more than Newgate specially coming to pick him up. He mistakenly thought that Newgate was coming to pick him up, but he didn't know that Newgate was accidentally blown to the island by wind and waves, and the two of them met. There is no information about this person. I will send his picture to you through the phone bug. Kong immediately sent Marshall Hill the photos of the mysterious figure Carl he had taken during the battle. Okay, that's it for now. Come back quickly. New World is too dangerous after all. Marshall Hill said with some concern. Understood, Marshall Hill. Bah. Marshall Hill hung up the phone. He knew that Kong and the others could not stay in New World for long. Then he picked up the faxed picture and looked at it carefully. Convene a meeting with Marine Rear Admiral and above personnel. He immediately gave the order to the messenger at the door. Yes, Marshall Hill. When the messenger standing at the door heard the order, he immediately saluted Marshall Hill, then turned around and went out, and immediately ran to summon the Marine generals who were still at Naval Headquarters. Marshall Hill looked at the Rock's bounty order placed on the table. Rock's. Marshall Hill had an angry look on his face and slammed his fist on the bounty notice that Rock's was laughing at. Naval Headquarters conference room. Marshall Hill took Carl's photo and walked to the front desk of the conference room. The conference room was already filled with dozens of Marine generals. He posted the photo on the blackboard, glanced at everyone, and cleared his throat. This man's name is Carl. Kong reported today and found that he is on Newgate's ship. He may even join Rock's team. Marshall Hill's majestic voice echoed throughout the conference room. Everyone present was sitting upright. Marshall Hill continued. The purpose of everyone's meeting now is to assess his risk and the amount of the reward. All the generals exchanged glances, surprised by the strength of this newcomer. For such a great newcomer, why don't you join Marine? A general asked curiously. What's good about pirates is that they burn, kill, loot and commit all kinds of evil everywhere. The other general looked a little pity. It's a pity that we don't have that much power in the second half of the Grand Line to maintain the balance at sea. Now with the growing strength of Rock's pirate, the Marine branch in the second half of the Grand Line has almost been cleared. Marshall Hill sighed, a trace of helplessness flashed across his face. There was silence in the conference room, and all the generals were lost in thought. Indeed, since the Rocks pirate began to gradually dominate the second half of the Grand Line, it has been difficult for Marine's tentacles to penetrate. If something big happens in the second half, Marine will not have time to support it. It is Marine's responsibility to uphold justice at sea. They know it very well, but they are really powerless. The strength of the newcomer in front of them made them realize that Rocks pirate is still continuing to grow and develop. Since he joined the pirates, don't blame us, Marshall Hill said righteously, because after all, he had joined the pirates and could no longer be won over by Marine. Yeah. Now that I have joined the pirates, there is nothing more to say. It's just a pity that such a powerful person didn't join Marine. Marshall Hill responded to everyone's comments with great interest. After all, Marine cannot be a stagnant water. If the people below him only know how to execute the orders he gives, but don't know how to adapt, then it will not work. Okay, the small talk is over. Marshall Hill patted the table, and order was restored in the conference room that immediately fell silent. The initial reward is 500 million belly. Marshal Shear's voice echoed in the quiet conference room. However, just when he read out the amount of Carl's reward, a Marine Vice Admiral Jeremy stood up. Isn't a newcomer too tall? Jeremy Vice Admiral said with some concern that he had some doubts about the strength of this newcomer, and the value of the 500 million Baileys in this period could far exceed the 500 million bounty at the beginning of the original work. It's not high. After all, I can't lose against Kong in a short period of time. Marshall Hill's tone was firm and unwavering. As soon as Marshall Hill's words came out, the conference room fell into silence. This newcomer is also very strong. Is there any more information about him? No such person has been found. We can only know that he first appeared on this desert island. Everyone was talking, and they were more and more shocked at the strength of this newcomer. Okay, let's set the amount of his reward at 500 million berry. Let's announce the amount of his reward as soon as possible. Marshall Hill made the final decision and decided to publish the reward amount for this newcomer to the entire sea. Then, the sentry at the door saw Marshall Hill greeting him, and immediately stepped forward to take Carl's photo to the communication room, preparing to announce his latest reward amount to all Marine branches. Next we need to discuss how to target the Rocks pirate. We cannot allow them to continue to grow. Marshall Hill looked at everyone, hoping to get their suggestions and ideas. That's the same thing. Let's do this first. The discussion in the conference room started again, and everyone began to brainstorm ways to deal with Rocks pirate. Chapter 12 Lighton Island Marshal's Office. Marshall Hill, Admiral Wenhu, and Admiral Snowlion stood in the spacious command room, filled with smoke, and everyone frowned. The atmosphere in the command room was oppressive and tense, as if hinting at an imminent huge crisis. Hill took a deep breath and looked firmly at the map in front of him. Now only the Sahai and the first half of the Grand Line were under their control. As for the second half of the Grand Line, it had completely become a paradise for pirates, with only sporadic several marine branches are barely holding on. He knew that the strength of the Rocks pirate had reached a critical point. Their strength was getting stronger and stronger, causing the entire marine and the world government to feel a huge headache. Wenhu Admiral frowned, feeling uneasy in his heart. If not curbed, the Rocks pirates' power will continue to expand, posing a great threat to the entire world, and it will also be very detrimental to their marines' execution of justice. The Snow Lion stood quietly aside, his eyes deep and cold. He understood that at this moment, they must take decisive action. Rocks Pirates' second team captain Edward Newgate is a strong player in his own right. And if the young man in front of him can be personally greeted by Newgate, then the possibility of him joining Rocks Pirate is also extremely high. I need to know all the information about this young man and arrange intelligence personnel to investigate immediately. Hill's voice was calm and firm. He knew that there was no time to waste now. Wenhu nodded, and he was also full of doubts, although he didn't know why this young man joined Rocks Pirate. But he understands that if Rocks Pirate continues to grow unscrupulously, it will bring immeasurable disaster to the entire world. The Rocks Pirate can no longer be allowed to grow unscrupulously. Hill's voice was filled with anger and determination. It was their marine's fault that justice could not reach the second half of the Grand Line. Wen-Hu and Snow Lion exchanged a look, and they both understood that this was a critical moment. As the Rocks pirate grew stronger, there would definitely be a life and death battle between them and the Rocks pirate. They must take action to prevent the spread of Rocks pirate and weaken the power of Rocks pirate. Marine Marshal Hill, Admiral Wen-Hu, and Admiral Snowlion will lead the entire Marine in a thrilling contest with Rocks pirate. Beehive Island. During this period, Morgans had not yet established a news agency. Reward orders were printed and distributed by Marine and then sent to various Marine branches through fax printers. Where did Newgate find such great new people? Golden Lion saw this bounty notice immediately on Beehive Island. He was a little jealous and thought that if he could also find someone who could fight like Carl, it would be a huge fortune. Therefore, Golden Lion immediately summoned its team members and decided to go to sea to find more powerful members. Kuro Island, the giant pirates. Rock's strength has increased again. Where should we go if this continues? Fred, the deputy leader of the giant soldier pirates, said worriedly. After all, he is the strategist of the giant pirates, but he also knows that the captain will not listen. The current captain looks very arrogant because of his alliance with the ex-pirates. He could only send his own people to investigate all information about Carl. Lighton Island has arrived. Carl had just sobered up when he heard the shouts from the pirates outside. So he quickly got out of bed. "Carl, you're awake." As soon as Carl walked out of the room, he saw Whitebeard walking towards him. "This island is the only way to Beehive Island. I just came here to take a rest. The drinks and food are almost gone." "Gu la 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 la." Newgate laughed boldly. "Because the banquet held yesterday resulted in insufficient food and drink stocks, we had to stop by this island. How about Carl? Come down and take a walk." Newgate invited him to say that Newgate wanted to show him the prosperity of the pirate world. "Let's go down and have a look," he also said with some expectation. It just so happened that he hadn't seen a market in so many years, and he also wanted to take a look in the pirate city. Would there be anything interesting happening? "Haha, let's go. I heard there is an auction today. It's good for us to attend it." Newgate's big hand patted his shoulder and then led the way. "The auction is just in time. Let's go. I'll go take a look too. I haven't been to an auction yet." Carl was curious. He imagined the bustling scene of the auction and wanted to know what rare treasures would be auctioned. He followed Newgate to the center of the city, which was already a bustling scene. Both sides of the street were filled with a dazzling array of goods, and different types of pirates and merchants were trading and bargaining. Even on the street, Carl discovered that many people were selling slaves. Carl couldn't help but be attracted by this lively scene. Everything in front of him was something he had never seen before on Blue Star. They passed through the crowd and arrived at a huge auction house, which was already overcrowded. There was an eye-catching sign hanging at the door of the auction house that read, "Auction starts today." Carl walked into the auction house with some excitement. He had never participated in an auction before. When he entered the scene, there was a lot of noise in the venue. The auctioneer's voice was high-pitched and passionate. Each precious item was held high in the hands of the auctioneer, causing bursts of noise and bidding. He carefully observed the various rare treasures in the auction house, including shining gems, gorgeous noble clothes, legendary ancient weapons and rare animals. Carl couldn't help but sigh. Now he is in this world full of treasures, seduction and mysterious auction. "Lord Newgate, please." Newgate was quite famous in the second half of New World. After all, he was the captain of Rock's Pirates' 2nd Division. When the people from the auction house saw him coming, they immediately welcomed him in. "When I entered the auction house, I suddenly noticed an eye-catching poster. The person on the poster is none other than himself, and it says, 'Carl, bounty of 500 million Baileys.'" He looked at his reward order in surprise. "I never thought that one day I would be offered a reward." "Carl, did you know? You have become a wanted pirate, with a bounty of up to 500 million Baileys." Newgate was happy for Carl. After all, the size of the bounty also represented a person's strength. "Newgate, I see it," Carl said excitedly. He knew that he would be rewarded, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. Unexpectedly, the reward for the first time was 500 million belly, which was much higher than the 30 million belly that Luffy went to sea for. "You know, this is not from Luffy's time. The 500 million Baileys at this time is far stronger than the 500 million Baileys at the beginning of the plot. Mr. Newgate, this way, this is a private room. If you have any needs, you can press this button. The person who led the way quickly introduced the two of them into a private room, briefly explained the facilities in the private room, and left with a maid behind. The field of view is quite broad. Carl stood in front of the window and looked at the people in the hall. Newgate sat directly on the sofa, picked up a bottle of foreign wine, opened it and drank. Look what you like, your eldest brother is rich. Newgate was indifferent. Because the wealth he has amassed in Rock's Pirate over the years is worth billions of dollars. If he was just buying some things, there was nothing to be afraid of. After all, he had not returned the money he had robbed to his hometown. After leaving the Rock's Pirate, he returned to his hometown once and saw the poverty in his hometown, so he invested most of the money he robbed back into his hometown. But what he didn't know was that this would make people in his hometown reluctant to work. After all, people in his hometown would become more and more lazy when they knew that someone was giving them money and they didn't need to work. This situation did not change until his death. Those people even complained about why he didn't give money to his hometown. Chapter 13 Clay and the Strange Devil Fruit. Next is our third to last lot. The Fishman from the Fishmen Island, Clay. At this moment, the third to last product was launched at the auction. He looks somewhat similar to Jinbei, except that he is more than 3 meters tall and has explosive rings on his hands, feet and neck. This is also an effective way to control slaves. As long as it leaves the holder within a certain range, the iron ring will explode in an instant. Even if armament hockey is very strong, he will be injured or even die. Not to mention that the iron ring is also mixed with a certain amount of sea stone, which is specially designed to restrain demon fruit power. So even demon fruit power will suffer a lot of damage and even death. Clay is a type of tiger shark. The tiger shark man is the most powerful kind of fishman among the fishmen. Clay is staring at the auctioneer on the stage, his angry eyes scanning the people present. In his opinion, whoever dares to buy him back will definitely buy him back, will kill that person. The starting price is 50 million belly, dang kang. Clay was clenching his fists, trying to break free of the chains around him. I offer 70 million belly. I offer 75 million belly. I offer 80 million belly. Seeing that Clay was so energetic and a rare fishman, the people in the audience increased their prices. In a short period of time, the amount has risen to 80 million belly. Carl felt Clay's anger and looked at his strong figure. He also knew that even if he joined Rock's Pirate, he would not join under Whitebeard. He would form a team by himself, and then he would need very strong subordinates. This Clay looks pretty good, so I might as well buy him. As his first helper, and also a fishman, he will definitely have a greater effect underwater. Then Big Brother Newgate will bleed a lot today, 200 million Baileys. Newgate didn't take the 200 million Baileys to heart and continued to drink his foreign wine. Little did he know that he would feel sorry for it after a while. After all, Carl didn't just buy one. Carl pressed the button and said his offer. The gentleman in the VIP room bids 200 million belly. Is there anything higher? Because it is a private room, people outside cannot see who is in the private room, but they know that since they can sit in the private room, they must be famous pirates at sea. So the scene was suddenly silent, and no one dared to follow. After all, they were afraid of being troubled by the people in the private room. As the whole place fell silent, the auction was called out 3 times quickly. Okay, let us congratulate this distinguished guest for taking a photo of this fishman for 200 million belly. The auctioneer saw that the scene was completely silent, and immediately started to liven up the atmosphere, and quickly raised his hammer and said, "Okay, now that the third to last lot has been bought, the next one is the second to last lot." The auctioneer said a little excitedly, because there were indeed a lot of good things today, especially the last 2 pieces. The second lot is a supremely sharp sword, the Long Chen sword. The Long Chen sword is one of the 12 supreme sharp knives. Everyone present knows the starting price of his worth, 100 million Baileys. Ouch! Is there a supremely sharp knife today? I didn't come here in vain today. The price instantly reached 500 million belly. After all, the value of the supreme sharp knife is different from other things. It is enough to be regarded as a family heirloom. It's more practical than devil fruit, because devil fruit, if you don't know its abilities, You'll end up losing more than you gain if you eat a junk devil fruit. Therefore, the price of devil fruit can range from high to low. The high price may be billions of Baileys, while the low price may be only tens of millions of Baileys. But each of the supreme sharp knives is unique, so the price cannot be that low. Although Carl does not use weapons now, this does not prevent him from fighting for it in case he needs to use it in the future, and this time he does not need to pay. Who can have too much of this kind of treasure? 800 million Baileys. Then he called out a very high price. Newgate instantly felt heartache. It added up to 1 billion Baileys, not a small amount of money, but since he said this, he did not stop Carl. At this time, some people had already retreated, and some others had already set their sights on the people in this room. They know that although this room is a big pirate, they don't mind giving it a try once the benefits reach a certain level. Okay, the second lot has also been taken by this distinguished guest. Let us look forward to the last item. The auction house doesn't care about these things, as long as it can be sold. There is nothing wrong with their auction house. So he quickly asked someone to bring the last item. I saw a maid bringing a tray covered with a red cloth. Judging from the appearance and shape, this should be a devil fruit. It's really the right time to come today. Yeah, I didn't expect there were so many good things today. It's a pity that both of them ended up in the same hands. Several pirates present immediately looked at each other, and they all focused on Carl. But what they don't know is that the person they are targeting is someone they can never afford to offend in their lifetime. This is the devil fruit entrusted to us by a mysterious person for auction. This devil fruit is rare, and our auction house doesn't know what its fruitability is. That's why today we have this devil fruit auction. Since we don't know the specific abilities of this devil fruit, its starting price is only 100 million belly. This is a good thing. Just when Carl was considering whether to buy it, a faint voice came from the system in his mind. Because we don't know the specific ability of this devil fruit. If we spend 100 million belly to buy a useless fruit, wouldn't it be a waste of money? He doesn't have a lot of Pele right now, and he also has a devil fruit himself, but he doesn't know what ability it is. But the system suddenly said something. Carl instantly made up his mind to buy it. 20 million Baileys. And everyone in the hall heard Carl speak again. Many people instantly lost the desire to bid, because in their opinion, instead of paying for it, it would be more convenient to kill someone and intercept the goods when they go out. Congratulations to this distinguished guest for taking the last item. Please pay sufficient amount in the background. Then the lots will be delivered to you one by one. Today's auction ends here. Thank you for participating, thank you. The auctioneer bowed politely and then walked backstage. Dang, dang, dang. There was a knock on the door. Carl quickly stood up and opened the door, only to see 3 maids holding devil fruit, Long Chen sword and Clay's remote key respectively. After Carl took out the full amount from his backpack, the maid accepted the money and then walked out of the room. When Carl auctioned the first item, he was still thinking not too much, but when the second item was auctioned, he hesitated a little. But now that he had said it, he couldn't refuse. Unexpectedly, Carl spent 1.2 billion belly on him. So Newgate felt distressed and asked the pirates to take the money. Chapter 14 An unexpected gain. When Newgate asked the pirates to take out the amount, Carl had already sensed that there was a lot of malicious intent against him. He knew he couldn't be kind today, and he just wanted to experience the feeling of being black and white, and see if there would be any unexpected gains. He put the items into the system backpack. Newgate saw the items disappear instantly, but he didn't ask much because he knew that this should be Carl's ability. Brother Newgate, you go back first, I will be there soon. And everyone should have their own privacy, so Newgate didn't ask any more questions, just stood up and said. Then I'll go back first, and pay attention to safety along the way. Boys, let's go. Newgate led the pirates and began to walk towards the bow of the ship. He guessed that Carl might be going to have fun. He asked Newgate to return to the ship first, while he slowly walked towards the pirate ship. Next to him was the fishman Clay. How were you arrested? Carl asked with some doubts. After all, the strength of the tiger shark type murlocs should not be weak. At the same time, Carl took off his imprisonment. Moreover, the forces in New World are very chaotic now. The big pirates should not care about the interests of the Fishmen Island, and the small pirates should not be able to defeat them. So he couldn't help but ask the doubts in his heart. When Clay saw Carl taking off his explosive bracelet, he said to him sincerely, "The captain is jealous." Clay told his story. It turned out that he served as the deputy captain of a pirate group. As his strength had grown stronger over the years, the captain saw him as a threat, so he gave him a banquet, drugged him and sold him to a slave club. This led to him being auctioned off directly. Otherwise, with his strength, there wouldn't be any pirate group who didn't have the foresight to catch him. Carl nodded when he heard this, somewhat believing what he said. At this moment, Carl walked into a dark alley. This alley is the only way to reach the coast. Newgate and the others have already passed this alley, and he deliberately fell behind, waiting for this moment. When he happened to reach this alley, he felt that the malice was getting stronger and stronger, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly. "Okay, let's not talk about it for now, our guests have arrived." Carl interrupted Clay's words, because he already felt the unfamiliar hostility, and it was getting closer. "Anyone there?" Clay looked horrified, and was even more startled. After all, in such a dark scene, such a sudden sentence was quite scary. He doesn't know observation hockey yet, so he can't sense enemies around him. "Come out. You're here," Carl said indifferently. After all, in his perception, none of these people were powerful. He instantly lost the desire to take action. He wanted Clay to deal with it and see how Clay's strength was. After all, he is a fishman, and he is also a stronger shark race. His strength should not be much different. "Little ones, come out. Since you discovered it, I'm sorry to keep the things you bought from the auction house. I can spare your life today, otherwise." As he spoke, the Scar pirate led by him licked the blade. I saw 40 or 50 people suddenly appearing around the alley. It was the malice they exuded that was sensed by Carl. Facing this group of pirates, Carl said helplessly, after all, he really couldn't muster the desire to attack these weaklings. "Clay, you go ahead, they leave it to you." Clay was not afraid at all. He could just release the anger in his heart. He clenched his fists with both hands, ready to respond to the enemy's attack at any time. Superior. Following the Scarface pirate's order, all the pirates rushed towards Clay. Facing the attacks of the pirates, Rayleigh used his flexible skills to shuttle back and forth among the crowd, waving his fists constantly, and every attack was able to hit the vital points of the pirates. For a moment, the alley was filled with shouts of death and screams. Carl stood aside, observing Clay's battle. He discovered that Clay's strength was far beyond his imagination. Not only can he easily deal with the attacks of pirates, but he can also constantly find the enemy's flaws in the battle and deliver a fatal blow to the enemy. He is indeed one of the top types of fishmen, with a strong sense of combat. After a while, the pirates were beaten to death by Clay and fell to the ground. Some pirates were even so frightened by Clay that they even threw away their weapons and just ran away. Scar Pirates was shocked and filled with fear when he saw that his men were defeated. He didn't expect that a seemingly inconspicuous fishman could be so powerful. "You. Who are you?" Scar Pirate asked tremblingly. "Me? I'm just a guy passing by," Carl said with a calm expression. The Scar Pirate was even more frightened when he heard Carl's words, because he was afraid that his whole face was distorted. He knew that he had hit a brick wall today, and if he continued to stay here, he would only face death. "Hero, spare your life. I offended you because I am blind, please let me go." Scar Pirate suddenly knelt on the ground and begged. "Clay, finish this quickly." Carl was already waiting a little impatiently. In his opinion, since he became a pirate, he should be determined to risk everything, instead of acting out like this. Upon hearing this, Clay turned to look at him, and then punched the Scar Pirate on the wall of the alley, killing the pirate. Carl nodded. It seemed that Clay was quite obedient, and then he took Clay out of the alley. Bang! Unexpectedly, an iron box fell from Scar Pirate's body when he fell to the ground. "What's this?" Clay asked confused. "Bring it to me and see." Carl guessed what it was. If he guessed correctly, it should be a devil fruit. "I didn't expect that there would be an unexpected harvest today. It's a small surprise," Carl said to Clay after putting away the iron box. "Your strength is pretty good, let's go." Carl led Clay towards the pirate ship on the shore. "Thank you, sir, for your help. Please let me join you." Clay turned around and knelt down on one knee, cupped his hands and said. Clay knew that since Carl didn't care about his explosive bracelet, either Carl was much stronger, or he wasn't afraid of him escaping at all. No matter which way he was full of gratitude to Carl. "Okay, I don't have a pirate group now. You can join my team first." Carl helped him up and said to him, because in Carl's view, he originally wanted to recruit Clay into his team. Although he cannot establish a pirate group now, the Battle of the Valley of the Gods is not far away, and he must find a good person for himself in advance. Subordinates, lest there be no one available for them at that time. Soon I walked out of the alley, and there was light in front of me. Carl is back. As soon as Carl reached the shore, Newgate on the boat saw him. "Yes, they are just a few petty thieves. I thought they were powerful people, but they turned out to be so vulnerable," Carl said helplessly, "but there is still an unexpected gain." Carl took out the iron box. "Gee la la la. It's really an unexpected gain." "Okay, come up first, boys, let's set sail." Newgate used observation hockey to sense that there was a fruit inside. After Carl boarded the ship, Newgate ordered the team to sail the ship to Beehive Island. Chapter 15 Battle with John. Carl found Newgate immediately after boarding the ship. "Does Brother Newgate recognize these devil fruit?" Carl said this to Newgate in the cabin. He urgently wanted to know the names of these devil fruits. He placed the devil fruit that was originally living on the desert island, the one that was auctioned just now, and the devil fruit that he got on the Scar Pirate one by one in front of Newgate. "I do know a few of them, but I don't know this one, but I can go back to the island and look up the devil's manual." Newgate pointed at the fruit at the auction and said, while Newgate showed an envious expression. He did not expect that Carl was so lucky and could harvest so many devil fruits in such a short period of time. "This one is the Paramecia rain fruit, and this one is the Zone golden cow fruit." The two fruits Newgate pointed to were the one he got on the desert island and the one he just got from Scar Pirate. As for the one at the auction, Newgate didn't recognize it either. Since Newgate doesn't know him, he can only place his hope in the system. "Okay, thanks. Although I didn't recognize them all, fortunately, I recognized two." After a simple dinner, Carl returned to his room. Clay was assigned to the room next to Carl. "What kind of fruit is this system?" Since the system reminded him before, the system must know what kind of fruit this is. "Ding. Congratulations host, you're so lucky. This fruit should be affected by the energy I released when I came to this world. It is an energy fruit that can absorb all the energy in the world and transform it or release it. It's a fruit with a high ceiling." Carl looked shocked when he heard that he could absorb all the energy in the world and not only transform it, but also release it. Carl is not one of those people in the pirate world who has not experienced the explosion of the technological era. Does all energy represent water energy, wind energy, kinetic energy, light energy, dark energy, thermal energy, or even some negative energy? If you take advantage of it, this is definitely a top-notch devil fruit. If you look at it this way, the upper limit of this fruit is really unimaginable. But Carl doesn't want to use the devil fruit for the time being. In his opinion, as long as the devil fruit is used, it will leave certain shortcomings for itself, such as fear of seawater. When his current strength has not reached its upper limit, he will not consider using devil fruit to increase his strength. After Carl washed up, he packed up and went to sleep. After all, if we arrive at Beehive Island tomorrow, what will happen is likely to be a fierce battle. After all, he told Newgate that he wanted to be the captain, not join his team. And if you want to become a captain, you must go through battles. So he must recharge his batteries. Beehive Island, an island located in the New World, looks like a huge beehive, hence its name. The environment on the island is extremely harsh. It is shrouded in thick fog all year round. The island is full of pirates and there are no civilians. This is the Beehive Island, the base camp of Rock's Pirate. And this morning, a pirate ship slowly sailed into the port of Beehive Island. Carl stood on the bow of the boat, looking at the mysterious island in front of him, his heart full of anticipation. Because he is a white man, and he wants to be the captain directly, it is impossible without some difficulties. So he thought carefully about who was weaker in Rock's Pirate during this period. After thinking about it, only John and Ochaku should be relatively weak. After all, Kaido is still just an intern at this time, and he can't become the captain even if he defeats Kaido. "How are you nervous?" Newgate stood next to him and asked him at this time, because Carl and Newgate talked about his idea on the way, and he wanted to be the captain directly. But Newgate expressed concern about this. Although Karl's current comprehensive strength can reach the vice admiral level after several battles, there is no good person on the island. If he is not good, he will end up dead. After all, rocks the members of the pirate are all murderous people. He is just very strong and recovers his physical strength very quickly, which makes him difficult to fight. He may fail if you are not careful, but this does not mean that no one can defeat him. He must be mentally prepared for this. Especially the Golden Lion in the pirate group, Charlotte Linlin, a swordmaster. Don't worry, I'm ready, Karl said confidently. After all, no matter what, according to his current physical recovery ability, as long as rocks didn't take action, he would not die directly. As long as he didn't die directly, he would still have a chance. The worst he could do was start as a crew member. He would rather face John or Ochaku, so the chance of success would be much greater. But what they didn't know was that the Golden Lion had already gone to sea, so it was not on the island at this time, otherwise Karl would be really in trouble today. Now that you've thought about it, let's go. While the two of them were talking, the ship had already docked, and the pirates on the ship moved the items on the ship to Beehive Island. Because Beehive Island is considered a home for pirates, although many things looted from outside will be placed on Beehive Island and handed over to Rox for distribution, the wealth after distribution belongs entirely to him. Rox rules his pirate group by using force to force them together. Although such a pirate group has no cohesion, its combat effectiveness is not generally strong. After all, the weak ones may have died long ago. Newgate, look who you brought back. Well. Newgate and Karl heard the news and went away, only to see Charlotte Linlin walking towards them. Charlotte Linlin has also seen the bounty order. The purpose of his coming here is to recruit Karl to join his team. How about it? How about joining my team? I guarantee you will be the vice captain when you come in. As soon as Charlotte Linlin approached, she extended an invitation to Karl. No, I want to be the captain. Karl had a wry smile on his face and declined politely because he didn't want to be anyone's team member, but he didn't expect Charlotte Linlin to be the first to recruit him. Charlotte Linlin seems to have expected this answer. After all, strong people don't like to be other people's subordinates, not to mention that he is the person brought back by Newgate. With a tall figure and a slight smile on her face, she said to Karl, "You can think about it first. My conditions are valid at any time. It's never too late to come to me." After saying that, Charlotte Linlin turned and left, leaving Karl and Newgate standing there. Newgate looked at Karl with a smile, patted Karl on the shoulder and said, "Come on, I hope you can realize your dreams soon." Karl nodded solemnly, took steps, and walked towards the depths of Beehive Island. He knew that if he wanted to stand out in Rox Pirate, he had to work harder. Who is talking shamelessly over there? There was a shout in the distance. I saw John walking towards this side with a big sword. If you want to be the captain, you must pass me first. John originally just watched from the side, but he didn't expect that Karl would actually talk nonsense. The 500 million berry bounty on Beehive Island was actually not that much. Hearing his arrogance, John wanted to come over and test his strength. "Eat my sword. Sword chi/wave," John said as he used his left foot to step on a big hole in the ground in an instant, jumped into the air, raised the long sword in his right hand and struck Karl. The long sword instantly turned dark, obviously entangled with armament haki, and a green sword energy struck Karl. And Karl did not back down. John took the lead in challenging him. Although he did not expect it, he was looking forward to the battle with him. He bent his legs and kicked hard, rushing towards John like a cannonball. Armament haki was also condensed in his right hand, and it crashed directly into John's sword. Although his armament haki had only been awakened for a short time, it was enough. Karl's armament haki has been understood to a deeper level through Newgate's guidance on the ship, but he is not very proficient. After all, his physical condition has already reached the bottom line of using armament haki. Clang! The moment their two fists touched the sword, a crisp sound of iron striking came out. At the moment of the collision, a circular airwave radiated to the surrounding area, and the pirates on the shore were immediately blown away. "Oh, there's a fight between the captains, retreat quickly. If you leave here quickly, you will be affected. Quick! Go!" The pirates on the sidelines all know that when captains initiate an ordinary battle, the aftermath of the battle is something they cannot bear. If they hadn't escaped, their fate might have been sealed here, so after they saw John and Carl starting to fight, they all moved away from the scene. John missed the blow, took a step back, and said, "Young man has a lot of potential, but with just this level of strength, it's not enough to be the captain. Take advantage of me again." John bent his knee slightly, then held the big sword in both hands, with veins popping out in his hands, and used 100% of his strength to slash at Carl. I saw a crescent-like energy attack rushing toward Carl. Carl also knew that if he wanted to be the captain, he could not ignore John's challenge, and he needed to defeat John. Chapter 16 Captain of the 6th Division, Shave. Carl used Marine 6 styles, Shave, and quickly rushed towards John. Carl easily dodged the sword energy attack, and the sword energy swept backwards, creating a mess in an instant. Hide further and faster. Hurry up. The pirates who were watching the excitement in the distance were almost affected by John's sword energy. Tempest Kick. Carl then used the Marine 6 style's Tempest Kick to kick John in the leg. John would not wait where he was, but would directly jump up with swords in both hands and strike at Carl. Shave quickly. Carl quickly dodged, stepping on the ground dozens of times in 0.36 seconds, to avoid John's sword energy attack, and then he jumped up and jumped lightly behind John. Bajikwan, collapse. John was not hit by Carl's Tempest Kick. He turned around quickly, held the sword in one hand and turned around to block, using the back of his sword to resist Carl's attack. "Boy, you're a little green in melee combat," John said disdainfully, because John was very confident in his physical skills, and he thought Carl was an arrogant boy, and he could defeat him even without a big sword. But what he didn't know was that Carl didn't use his full strength. This was a sign of weakness on his part. After all, he wasn't sure how strong John was, so there was nothing wrong with being careful. Overlord Fist. John had a sinister smile on his face, stuck the sword on the ground with his right hand, and then raised a fierce fist to hit Carl. He wanted Carl to know that his physical skills were not weak either. Carl's eyes flashed, and he knew that this was John's unique skill, Overlord Fist. He quickly raised his arms and used them as a shield to block John's fist. With a loud noise, Carl was knocked back a few steps by the force of John's punch. His arm was slightly numb, but he found that John's physical skills were not very strong and he could still cope with it. And he was especially grateful to John for his self-control. Big, allowing him to find a chance to win. Without hesitation, Carl rushed towards John again. This time his right hand condensed more armament haki, and a faint golden light filled his body. John's expression changed, and he immediately felt the crisis. He knew that he had underestimated Carl, but now it was too late to pull out the sword on the ground. He immediately clenched his fists and counterattacked, hitting Carl with both fists like lightning. The two fists collided instantly, and a powerful shockwave spread around. Boom! The seawater on the shore was stirred up, forming huge water columns. Carl's whole body's strength was concentrated on his fists, and he let out a beast-like roar. His whole body was like a volcano erupting, and the golden light penetrating his body erupted with endless power. At the same time, John felt that his power was being gradually suppressed. His eyes became fierce and he gritted his teeth. He did not flinch and continued to fight back with all his strength. The two fists collided again with a loud bang. This time, Carl's fist won, and his strength overwhelmed John. John was knocked back a few steps, his face full of surprise and anger. He originally thought that his strength would never lose to Carl, but now he realized that he was wrong, but it was too late for him to regret it. Because Carl did not give John a chance to breathe, he launched an attack again, and his fists were like a whirlwind, hitting John hard. John tried his best to dodge, but was still hit several times by Carl's fists. Every collision of the fists caused severe pain. Not good. Bajikwan Tishan rely on. Carl saw John showing signs of fatigue and immediately pursued the victory. A cannon that can reach the sky from the ground. The combos continued, and John was hit so hard that he had no time to defend. But John quickly got used to Carl's attacking pace, and the subsequent battle between the two became even more anxious. After several hours of fighting, John sensed that Carl's power was constantly rising. Gradually, he couldn't stand it anymore, and he knew that he had underestimated Carl. But Carl's attacks were getting faster and faster, and he had no chance to fight back. Finally, after dozens of minutes of stalemate, John's arms hung feebly on both sides of his body, and his body collapsed on the ground. His body could no longer support him, and he knew he had lost. He didn't expect that he would lose to Carl. "I lost," John said angrily, his face distorted. After all, his skills are inferior to others, but John is not someone who simply gives up. He knows that he has been fooled by Carl. If Carl hadn't kept using physical skills to consume his physical strength, this battle would not have ended so quickly. After all, he is not a physical expert, he is a great swordsman. Carl stood next to John, his chest heaving rapidly. He felt an unprecedented sense of pride and strength. He knew that if he hadn't used tricks, he wouldn't have been able to defeat John, although he felt that with his current physical strength, he could still do it. Fight with him for a few more days. It was only after the fighting stopped that he felt the pain coming from everywhere in his body. Carl actually beat John. Gulala. John is really unlucky to have been deceived by Carl. Newgate, not far away, could tell the whole story of the battle at a glance. Captain John loses. How is it possible? Captain John will lose to this newcomer. Captain John heard his team members muttering quietly and immediately turned his head and looked fiercely. Suddenly, the pirates who were muttering in low voices turned pale, and then quickly bowed and walked away. This matter is not over yet. John regained some strength and slowly stood up from the ground. Carl knew that he wanted to be the captain of the team. Because the entire island should be under the radar of Captain Rox, the battle between the two of them must have been discovered by Rox, and he knew that he was qualified to run for captain. The rest of the pirates looked at this scene with awe in their eyes. Carl defeated John and proved that he was as strong as the captain. They knew that they might have a new captain. On the one hand, the Rox pirate was getting stronger. On the other hand, many pirates who had not yet followed the captain suddenly started to think carefully. They wanted to join the new captain, under his command. From now on, Carl will be the captain of our Rox Pirate Division 6 team. While the pirates were still thinking about how to join Carl's team, a heavy sound came from deep within the island. Carl quickly looked towards the island, and saw a vaguely strong man more than 3 meters tall, wearing a red cape and an ancient captain's hat, with long blonde hair, and a long knife slung by his right hand, walking towards this side. The person who came was none other than Rox D. Zebek, the leader of Rox Pirate, known as the most vicious person in history. Welcome to Rox Pirate. Ha ha ha. In order to realize his ideals, Rox has been recruiting powerful people to join his pirate group. So of course he was very happy that someone with a combat power comparable to that of a captain came to the island. This is one step closer to his plan. Boys, let's have a party. Celebrating your 6th Division Captain Carl. Rox walked up to him and just looked at Carl before ordering the pirates. Oh, there's a party. The pirates present immediately made a huge noise. Banquets are one of the essential events on Beehive Island. What's more, a new captain of the 6th Division has been added. While Carl and his companions were having a banquet, Rox Pirates trader had already reported the details of their encounter with John today to Marine Marshal Hill. After Marshal Hill learned the news, he realized that Carl's strength had increased a lot. This young man should not be underestimated. His strength rose rapidly, and he immediately issued a series of orders against Carl. Marshal Hill ordered the Marine Intelligence Agency to strengthen surveillance of Carl and collect all information about him, including his strength, moves, personality traits, etc. This information will help Marine better deal with Carl in future operations. Marshal Hill asked the Marine Science Force to strengthen research on Carl's abilities. They need to understand the principles of Carl's moves to ensure that they can have an advantage in future battles between Marine and Carl. After the banquet, Carl accepted some kinder-looking pirates as his subordinates. Although they were generally not very strong, they were still among the first batch of subordinates and could help him with some chores. He chose a place on Beehive Island and let the pirates start building houses. This will be the headquarters of their 6th Division in the future. When Charlotte Linlin learned that Carl had Titan blood, she stated many times at the banquet that she wanted to have children with Carl, but he was rejected by Carl. But Charlotte Company discovered that Carl was too drunk, and she immediately came up with a plan. While Charlotte Linlin was thinking about how to contact Carl, Rox fell into deep thought and became even more suspicious. After all, it was not long before he attacked the Valley of the Gods. Although no one knew his plan, it was a good thing to suddenly have such a strong person join. But what if he was an undercover agent? So he came up with a way. Let him test his loyalty by directly attacking a weaker world government member country. And he also inserted an informant among the pirates recruited by Carl yesterday just for this matter. Boss Carl, Captain Rox is calling you. The next morning, when Carl just got up from bed, before breakfast, a pirate came over to inform him that Captain Rox wanted to see him. Chapter 17 Phil Kingdom. Captain Rox. What did he want from me? Although he was confused, he still walked towards the meeting hall. Carl just walked into the Rox hall and saw that all the division captains had arrived. I saw Golden Lion, Newgate, Charlotte Linlin and John Ochaku sitting on both sides. At the end, Kaido was also standing there. After all, although Kaido is an intern, his strength is not much worse than that of the captain, so he is also qualified to enter the Pirate Council. During this period, Kaido was actually not far away from being the captain. Unfortunately, he did not serve as the captain. He is now considered a pirate in Charlotte Linlin's team, so he stands next to Charlotte Linlin. Ha 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 ha. Rox looked gloomy, then laughed. Rox smiled mysteriously and said to Carl, Carl, we already have a certain understanding of your strength, but we need to further confirm your loyalty. Now, I have a task for you. Carl immediately showed a puzzled expression and asked, what mission? Rox waved his hand and said, this mission is to attack a country that is a member of the world government. This country is not very strong. Don't worry, it will be very dangerous. Rox himself was just testing Carl. After all, if Carl wasn't an undercover agent and asked him to fight against a powerful country, wouldn't it be a waste of a good player? As soon as Rox finished speaking, Carl found Kaido glaring at him angrily. He knew it was Kaido who was venting his dissatisfaction. After all, Kaido had not become the captain after joining Rock's pirate for so long, but a newcomer immediately became the captain, so he was very unconvinced. He thought that Carl was not very strong. Because the weakest among the captains in the entire pirate group is John. John and Ochaku are captains solely because they were the first batch to join the Rock's pirate, so defeating them does not prove that Carl must have the strength of a captain. As for your mission, it is to go to the Phil Kingdom to cause a scene. He didn't know if this mission was dangerous or not. He couldn't believe Rock's words, but he also knew that he had to go. After all, it was Rox who gave the order himself, and under his perception, Rox was exuding an astonishing murderous aura. He doubted that if you don't agree, you may die here on the spot. Are there any specific requirements? Carl asked. He wanted to know what Rock's purpose was in asking him to go to this kingdom. Is it just simple plunder? Or does it have other purposes? He also guessed that asking him to attack a franchised country as soon as he joined might be testing his loyalty, but he didn't care about it because he had no intention of staying as captain of the Rock's Pirates, and Rock's Pirate also existed. Not long. Just make a scene as much as you want. Rock's expression softened slightly after hearing his answer. Rox did not arrange more work for him, but just asked him to go to the Phil Kingdom to cause a scene. If it's no problem, leave it to me. So, he accepted the task without hesitation. In his opinion, the risk would be lower. Seeing that Carl accepted the task without hesitation, Rock's doubts began to ease. He walked up to Carl, patted Carl on the shoulder, and said with a laugh, "Haha, very good, Carl. I hope you can complete the mission successfully. All the property looted in this mission belongs to you alone." Ha 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 ha. After Rox finished speaking, he laughed and walked out of the chamber. Gia ha 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 ha. Boy Carl, how about joining my team? Golden Lion sat aside and laughed. He just rushed back to the island last night and was regretting why he set sail yesterday and failed to recruit Carl at the first time. So I extended an olive branch to him during our first meeting today. After all, he has long wanted to counter Rock's pirate, but he has been suffering from no chance. If Carl can join him, he will be his right-hand man. Sorry, Captain Golden Lion, I am not considering joining other people's teams for the time being. Golden Lion didn't press too hard after hearing this. After all, Carl had already made it clear that he wanted to be the captain, and Carl's strength was not weak now. He knew what he meant, so he just opened his mouth to test, but he was a little regretful. Why didn't he find such a powerful assistant like Carl outside? Then the Golden Lion followed suit. Carl, have a baby with me. Charlotte Linlin smiled and rushed to him immediately. No, when Carl heard this, he quickly declined. He didn't want to have a relationship with Charlotte Linlin. After all, Charlotte Linlin later married more than 50 husbands, and she didn't pay attention to her figure and became so fat. He thought about it. When the picture appeared in my mind, I quickly shook my head and left quickly. Ha ha ha, old lady, it seems that Carl is not very willing. Ochaku said mockingly on the sidelines, because Charlotte Linlin had looked for Golden Lion and Newgate, but none of the others. Not only was he a little jealous, he felt that Charlotte Linlin looked down on his strength. TCH, I still don't like you. Kaido, let's go. Charlotte Linlin stopped Kaido and left. How's it going? Do you want me to go with you? Newgate called him from behind and said. After all, he brought the person back. Rox immediately arranged for him to attack a franchise country. It was clear that he did not trust Carl's identity, but he could not do more to help him. After all, he had not yet who has the ability to object to Rox's decision. Newgate still has a good impression of Carl. It's okay, it's just a franchise country. Just wait for my good news. Carl said with a relaxed expression. After all, the franchise countries in the second half of the Grand Line currently do not receive timely support from the Marine government, so if he goes, although there will be risks, the risks will not be that great. Okay, let's go, be careful of Marine's ambush. Newgate laughed. After all, Marine rounded them up very rarely in the second half of New World. So don't worry too much. Clay. As soon as Carl returned to the station, he immediately called Clay over. Now Clay is considered the second strongest person in his team. Lord Carl. What happened when Captain Rox called you over just now? Clay asked with confusion on his face. After all, they had just joined the Rox pirate. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any tasks assigned to them. Maybe they are doubtful about our position, so we need to go to Phil Kingdom. My lord, when will we set sail? To avoid long nights and many dreams, gather your men and set sail now. Carl didn't want to take too long. After all, there was a traitor inside the Rox pirate. He knew that if he arrived late, the Marines sent by the world government might be waiting for them nearby. At that time it was hard to say who would hit whom. Understood, Captain Carl. After receiving the affirmative answer, Clay immediately said seriously, and at the same time turned around and left, summoning the pirate members. A few hours later, Carl led his pirates and headed towards the target Kingdom of Phil. Boys, our goal is the Kingdom of Phil. I will distribute 50% of the looted property to you. He also knew that this group of pirates had just joined his team. There was no so-called trust among the pirates, so he had to use high rewards to inspire their will to fight and avoid situations. Long live your lord, long live your lord Carl. Clay was the first to shout, long live the captain. Thank you, Captain. Captain Carl. Carl's decision made the pirates present shout loudly. Because usually they only get 10% or 20% of the property they plunder. They even had to provide part of the supply to the captain, so they were allocated 50% for this robbery, which was enough to make them overjoyed. Moreover, this is still a government-affiliated country, and Bailey should not be missing much. Carl guessed that there should be Rox's informant among the pirates present. So he has to perform well, and Rox did have an informant on his ship. He hid behind the scenes and paid close attention to Carl's every move through informants, hoping that he could successfully complete the task while also guarding against his possible betrayal. Chapter 18 Swordsman, Dong Dong Dong. Carl was sitting inside the cabin, thinking about the problem, when he heard a knock on the door. Come in. Lord Carl. The Kingdom of Phil has arrived. Clay opened the door and said excitedly to Carl. Oh, are you here already? Then let's go. Carl walked toward the deck. Clay followed closely behind. Carl was actually communicating with the system just now. He wanted to know whether he affected the timeline of the pirate world when he joined Rox Pirate. However, the feedback given to him by the system is that since there is still a long distance from the opening time of the plot, the timeline affected by his joining Rox Pirate is too small, and may even be modified by world consciousness. So in fact, there are no big changes to the entire timeline. When Carl heard this, he knew that if he wanted to interfere with the timeline, he had to do something historically significant. After all, even the Battle of the Valley of the Gods had basically disappeared, and his joining Rox Pirate was even more insignificant compared to the Valley of the Gods. So he was not discouraged. He knew that as long as he participated in more major events, he could definitely add up to a small amount and truly affect the timeline. Okay, boys, go directly to the capital of Phil Kingdom. The corners of Carl's mouth raised slightly, and he stood on the bow of the ship and said to the pirates under his flag, "Fire, fire, fire." The gunner immediately adjusted the muzzle and blasted towards the port of Phil Kingdom. "Come on. For the gold." The rest of the pirates jumped to the coast and headed towards the center of Phil Kingdom. "No, there are pirates. Please notify the Kingdom Guard immediately." The moment the pirates fired, the guards on the shore knew that this pirate was coming to attack them. After all, Phil Kingdom would usually stop some pirate ships for replenishment, so when their pirate ships came over, and did not report it to the Kingdom Guards immediately, just thinking it was the same as usual. "Take your life. Ha ha ha, it's all mine." But it was too late by this time. Most of the pirates had already landed at the port and started burning, killing and looting. For a time, there was the sound of gunfire and fighting in the port, and the seawater was dyed red with blood. Carl took a leisurely stroll and walked towards the center of Phil Kingdom. Since there was a big fuss, he would be responsible for killing the strongest ones, and left the rest to his men to cause a big fuss. This should be considered a job. After all, he has not let go of his moral integrity yet, and he does not want to harm ordinary people. Although it was not Carl's original intention to come to Phil Kingdom to kill, since he became a pirate, this is a process he must go through. Shoot. Raise the gun. In the distance, hundreds of people were walking forward, raising their rifles. Even further away, more Kingdom Guards were coming. It was the Kingdom Guards who had arrived. Put. Bang bang bang. Suddenly the scene was filled with gunshots. Emloculent karate throw over the shoulder. Clay stood at the port and drove out of the fishman karate, and instantly smashed the seawater at the port into the escort team, and instantly hundreds of escort team members fell on their backs. "Well done, Lord Clay. Follow Master Clay's pace and charge." At this time, the pirates laughed excitedly and rushed towards the escort crazily. In just a short period of time, all the fallen guards were slaughtered. "Damn pirates, how dare you invade our Phil Kingdom?" A voice came from Carl's right side. Carl turned around and saw a strong middle-aged man in golden armor running towards them quickly. "I am Klein Admiral. Pirates, your doom is coming." /wave. When Klein Admiral saw the heavy casualties of the escort, he immediately drew his sword and swung it at Carl. A blue sword energy appeared out of thin air. "Swordsman, that's interesting." Carl also didn't expect that there was a swordsman in Fair Kingdom. Domination fist. Carl covered armament hockey with his right hand. At this time, Carl's armed color could already cover his arm, which shows how quickly he understood armament hockey. A punch met Klein Admiral's sword energy. The fists and swords met, and a huge energy shockwave burst out, shattering the surrounding buildings. The surrounding pirates immediately set aside the fighting site for them, fearing that they would be affected by the aftermath of the battle. Klein Admiral was shocked when he saw his sword energy being neutralized by Carl, but his face did not change at all. He immediately knew that Carl's strength was not ordinary, so he mustered up his energy and went all out to deal with it. Klein Admiral wielded his sword and displayed a set of exquisite sword skills. His sword energy was like a continuous wave, attacking Carl from all directions. Carl was also fearless in the face of danger and used armament hockey to make his arm stronger. He dodged and moved around, constantly blocking Klein Admiral's sword energy with his right hand covering armament hockey. At the same time, he kept approaching Klein, and the sword blade and fist soon intersected. Chang, chang, chang. For a time, the two fought for dozens of rounds. Carl relied on his strong physique to fight more and more smoothly. Klein Admiral gradually fell into disadvantage. The warm-up is over. Next it's time for the official battle. Carl's aura changed. His whole body was exuding a dazzling light, his muscles were tense, and he became very dangerous. Instantly disappearing from the spot, with an astonishing speed that ordinary people cannot catch with the naked eye, as well as overwhelming momentum and powerful body, the whole body instantly appeared next to Klein Admiral, punching out with destructive power that swept everything. Klein Admiral's eyes widened, and his brain hadn't reacted yet. He didn't expect Carl to be so strong. Wasn't he just playing with him just now? However, the body's subconscious and instinctive muscle reaction raised the sword with his right hand to resist. The next second, the sword was shattered into pieces. The body also flew out and fell heavily to the ground in midair. He still couldn't resist Karl's punch. He could clearly feel the passage of his life, and he knew that his time was running out. Let's stop this farce. Karl did not look at Klein, but walked straight towards the palace. Because he knew that Klein Admiral could no longer survive, and the breath of life was slowly dissipating. In his perception, he should be the one with the strongest life characteristics on this island. You. What's your name? Klein Admiral clutched his chest, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said tremblingly. He didn't expect that in Karl's eyes, this was just a farce. He knew that his life was passing quickly, but he was unwilling to do so. He failed to protect his kingdom. When you report down below, remember to state my name, Karl. Karl walked forward, heard his question, and replied lightly. Although Karl knows that he is a loyal person, this does not mean that he can let go. Going all out is also a sign of respect for him. Karl? Phil Kingdom. I really tried my best. Klein Admiral slowly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Lord Karl, there are some rescued slaves who want to join us. Most of them are from auction houses. Just as Karl ended the battle and walked leisurely towards the palace, Clay trotted up to him. Oh, this island also has an auction house. Karl was a little surprised. This island has a small population. He didn't expect that there would be an auction house. Could it be that the king himself was conducting human trafficking in private? These are slaves rescued by Phil Kingdom Auction House, and most of them want to join us. Clay led a group of skinny people to him. Looking at Karl expectantly, he wanted Karl to take in these people. After all, he was also sold as a slave, so he still had a little sympathy for these people. Follow me, and life and death will not be yours. Karl didn't care. He looked at the group of skinny people in front of him. He knew that being slaves was not their original intention, but he could not change the situation now. Thank you for saving me, sir. I am willing to do my best for you in the future. Everyone present clasped their fists and said to Karl. Because they also know that even if they are caught by traffickers after escaping, they will still be sold as slaves. So they had no choice. Instead of being caught, they might as well join the pirates directly, so that at least they wouldn't have to live such a dark life anymore. Chapter 19 Dragon Man, don't take what's mine. Karl heard the quarrel inside from outside. Yours, I said it's mine. If you scream, will he agree? Give it back to you. Go aside. A strong pirate kicked a pirate with a scar on his face to the ground. If you don't give it to me, you will die. The other man immediately got up and pulled out a long knife and started fighting with him. Suddenly the two people were fighting fiercely. After Karl finished dealing with the slaves from the auction, he heard the sounds of pirates fighting inside as soon as he walked to the palace. Because Karl said that 50% of the wealth will be distributed to them. Therefore, they did not move the plundered items to the ship first, but started robbing them directly on the spot. After all, only what they grabbed was theirs. Is there any devil fruit? Karl saw Clay waiting nearby. Karl did not persuade them to leave. Although he only stayed on the island for one day, he had seen too many such things. Peers killing each other is a common occurrence in Rock's Pirate. He has no feelings for these pirates, he just acts as a subordinate temporarily, so he doesn't care about their life or death. My lord, here is the treasure house. There are only these 3 iron boxes in the innermost part. The others are filled with gold and other precious treasures. Clay immediately rushed out from the side. There were 3 iron boxes on the pallet, which were all locked. They were apparently used to contain devil fruit. How are the members of the royal family doing? When Karl guessed that the island's king might be involved in human trafficking, he was particularly unkind to the people of this island. Although human trafficking is not surprising in the New World, it does not mean that Karl likes such people. Don't worry, Lord Karl, not a single member of the royal family is left alive. Okay, I'm going back to the boat first. You watch them and let them carry things to the boat. I'll wait for you on the boat. In fact, Karl didn't want to let these people go when he heard that this country was involved in human trafficking. After all, human traffickers are despised no matter where they are. Please don't worry, Lord Karl. The Phil Kingdom is only a small franchise country, so the island is very small and the population is less than 50,000. Karl returned to the ship with 3 iron boxes. Okay, stop fighting and move your things to the boat. In front of Carl, Clay had a respectful face, but in the eyes of others, Clay was a fierce representative of evildoers. He saw the two pirates still struggling with each other, and immediately rushed over and punched each one away. Clay saw that they had calmed down. Immediately and seriously commanded the pirates present to move all items to the ship. They were about to return to Beehive Island and could not waste time here. On his way back to the ship, Carl sensed two teenagers hugging each other in an alley. "Brother, hide it. I understand, brother, you should also hide it." The brothers were hiding in a trash can behind an alley. Carl may be gifted with titans, so he can sense a hidden energy within them. He guessed that this might be a special constitution in the pirate world, just like Kaido's Ghost Clan, and he immediately became interested. "You two brats, come out." Carl stood at the entrance of the alley and said to them. "Have we been discovered, brother?" Long looked a little frightened. He didn't want to be captured again and live the dark slave life. "Brother, don't talk." Long Yi showed a faint smile. First, he comforted his brother, and then slowly poked his little head out of the trash can. As soon as Long Yi poked his eyes out, he saw Carl looking at them with a smile. "Come out, little one. These two little guys must be orphans." After all, after they landed on the island, they robbed the auction house, causing many slaves on the island to run away. And since many slaves were sold from other islands, most of the children are orphans. "Come with me, and you will be free from now on." Carl's eyes flashed and he saw the chain on Long Yi's hand. "The two of them must be one of them. Since you saw it, take it with you." "Really, big brother?" In Long Yi's memory, he only remembered the dark slave life. He had already forgotten his parents and even his own identity. "Of course, you can call me Carl from now on. I will protect you." "Thank you, Lord Carl." Long Yi quickly pulled Long out of the trash can, and the two small figures bowed 90 degrees to Carl. "Okay, you two are so skinny, come with me." At a glance, it was obvious that these two children were starved to this point. Carl led the two of them towards the pirate ship in the port. "Do you still remember what your names are?" "Master Carl, my name is Long Yi, and my brother's name is Long. We have been captured as slaves since we were children. It's just that they all thought we were too thin, so they didn't sell us after many auctions. But that's because they don't give us anything to eat. We made a lot of friends in the auction house, but they all ran away during the chaos just now. My brother and I couldn't run anymore, so we found a place to hide." Long Yi and Long talked to each other. Carl looked at the two children, who had no flesh on their bodies and were skinny. He couldn't help but think that if he were in his hometown of Blue Star, such a thing would hardly exist. If he just made some news and got help from the society, he wouldn't be like this. Although he was a little sad, he didn't show it on his face. "Come out." Carl walked in front, while Long 1 and Long 2 supported each other and followed behind. "Go get some food, don't be too greasy." "Okay, Lord Carl." As soon as Carl arrived on the boat, he asked the chef to get some food. He didn't ask the chef to prepare a lot at first, but just a little. After all, two teenagers who have been hungry for a long time, suddenly eating too much food will cause nausea, which will be counterproductive. Of course, if two people absorb the nutrients of the food too quickly, that's okay. These two children were so thin that it seemed as if the breeze could knock them down. "Thank you, Lord Carl, thank you, Lord Carl." Long 1, Long 2, bow 90 degrees again. "Okay, you two go to the bathroom to wash up first. The smell all over your body is too strong." Long Yi and Long quickly smelled each other's bodies. They were actually used to this smell. Because the two of them had just gotten out of the trash can, they smelled of rotting food. But when they heard Carl say this, they could only nod and said yes. Just after Carl sent the two of them to the chef, he walked straight to his room. "Close the door." Crunch. Since there was no key, violent disassembly was used. The 3 iron boxes were violently opened from the middle like eating a watermelon. What a pity. After Carl opened the 3 iron boxes, he found that 2 of them were empty. The iron boxes were actually quite heavy, so he didn't feel that only one box had something in it for a while. Although there is only one in it, it is still worth the trip since it is devil fruit after all. This devil fruit is banana-shaped, dark gray in color, and has mysterious lines all over its body. It should be a zone devil fruit, but I don't know if it's useful anymore. What kind of devil fruit is this system? After systematic testing, the devil fruit is zone rhino fruit. It's okay, it's an unexpected gain. Chapter 20 New Character Template. Although I have only been in the world of pirates for less than a month, I have already collected 4 devil fruits, which is a full harvest. He looked at the 4 devil fruits with some pride. He probably didn't embarrass the time traveler. Dong dong dong. Lord Carl. Come in. Carl heard Clay's knock on the door and quickly put away the devil fruit. Lord Carl's harvest has been counted. Wealth probably gained 1.4 billion Baileys. Because your excellency has to split 50%, your income this time is 700 million Baileys. Clay stood at the door and said respectfully to Carl, but Clay looked a little regretful. After all, he gave away 50% of the looted things. This has never happened on Beehive Island. Carl was also the first captain to do this, but who made Carl his savior? After all, what he saw on Beehive Island made him know that the average pirate might actually get less than 10% every time. While Carl was regretting that there was only 1 devil fruit among the 3 iron boxes, Clay had completed the work of transporting valuables on the island and came over to report to him. As for other items, they need to be sold in the underground world before further quotations can be obtained. Okay, I understand. Let's take care of the rest back to Honeycomb Island. Carl said with a deep look on his face. He saw Clay coming over and thought of an idea. By the way, select some fishmen from the slaves to form a rescue team. The remaining people were divided into various teams. The first reason for allocating people in this way is that as the number of his team increases, there will definitely be many crew members who will have devil fruit. Then this rescue team can be responsible for going to the sea to salvage the demon fruit power. After all, a demon fruit power is still of great use. Under his command, he established 10 teams, and now each team only has about 20 or 30 people. There were more than 500 slaves rescued this time, so he had to disperse them into various teams. After all, he didn't want to worry too much about the discord within the team. In his opinion, these people wouldn't last long with him, so he didn't want to waste that energy. Understood, Lord Carl. Clay immediately understood what Lord Carl meant, and he would immediately make arrangements. Now Clay is completely equivalent to Carl's housekeeper, and Carl will directly leave many things to Clay. Although Clay had already decided in his heart to swear allegiance to Carl. By the way, go and see how Long Yi, Long and the others are doing. After assigning the tasks, Carl thought of the 2 children, Long Yi and Long Long Yi, who is Long Clay was confused for a moment. After all, in his impression, there should be no 2 people on the ship. Is there something else he doesn't know about? I just took 2 children with me on the road. He remembered seeing the sloppy expressions of Long Yi and in the alley. Not only was his style funny, he never thought that one day he would become a so-called good person. It's Mr. Carl. I will go take a look and report the situation to you. Okay, you go down. Carl waved his hand, because he had been living in the pirate world for a full month. So when Clay turned around and went out, Carl immediately called out the Chinese comic system. Carl opened the system's virtual panel and saw that the number of monthly draws changed from 0 to 1. System lottery. After all, Carl hasn't drawn a lottery for a long time, so he is looking forward to what prizes he will get in this lottery. I saw a golden disc appearing out of thin air on the virtual screen in front of me, which displayed the heroic characters from various national comics. Yuan Tiangang among bad people, the 5 elements of fire in Wushan Mountain, and the Master of Heaven under one person. The black pointer began to rotate rapidly on the golden turntable. Today's prizes are quite generous. The Heavenly Masters have all come out. Compared with the other hero templates on the disc, they are still a bit inferior. The old Heavenly Master is a cultivator of immortals. He claims that I am invincible below the immortals, but I am invincible among the immortals. Moreover, he is the best among one person, and his strength must not be underestimated. Carl watched the golden turntable rotate slowly. He closed his eyes tightly and silently shouted the name of the Heavenly Master in his heart. Congratulations to host, you won the Heavenly Master template. Carl became excited instantly and jumped up from his stool. This was the best reward of all he had ever received. The rewards are stored in the inventory. Please check the host for specific instructions. Vaguely, Carl seemed to hear the envious voice of the system. Check the introduction of Laotianchi, Hero Template, Master under one person. Background introduction. The old Celestial Master Zhang Jiwei is the 60th fifth-generation Celestial Master of the Longhu Mountain Celestial Master Mansion. He is one of the 10 Masters. His Taoist name is Tiantong. He is the best among the one Supreme Master and 2 heroes. His strength is immeasurable and he is the leader of one person, the most powerful stranger. Skills. Golden Light Spell, 5 Yang Thunders, Palm Thunder, Heart Purifying Spell, Thunder Technique, and several Taoist boxing techniques. When Carl saw the character introduction of Lao Tianxi, his mood was like a roller coaster. He knew that he had made a lot of money in this monthly lottery, but he didn't expect that he could actually draw the template of Lao Tianxi. He said impatiently, "The system integrates the master's template." Template fusion. When Carl's body began to merge with the old heavenly master's template, his body underwent drastic changes. He felt a hot energy running through his body, as if every cell in his body was activated and began to evolve, and his strength doubled several times in an instant. His muscles have become stronger and stronger, his bones have become harder, and his height has even been further increased, reaching 2.9 meters. The strengthening of his nervous system has also made his perception more acute. At the same time, his thinking became extremely sharp, his memory was greatly enhanced, and many memories deep in his mind became very clear. Carl found that he had become more agile and his understanding and analytical skills had greatly improved. A large amount of knowledge emerged from his mind, and he knew that this was a skill possessed by the Heavenly Master. At this moment, it was as if he had been practicing for decades. After the fusion was completed, he clenched his hands, and with the contraction of his muscles, he could clearly feel that he had become much stronger. Carl opened his right hand, and instantly a thunder flower bloomed from his palm, which was the thunder in his palm. He was a little surprised to see the lightning in his hand, and thought to himself that maybe he could pretend to be a thunder fruit user in the future. How amazing! It's like instinct. It just consumes my physical strength and body energy, which can be said to be internal strength. Just as he was condensing a palm thunder, he keenly felt that his physical strength had decreased by a small amount, approximately 1% of his physical strength was consumed. But he is the owner of the power of the Titans, and the physical strength he consumes is not as fast as his recovery, so there is no need to worry about the loss of physical strength. I just don't know how powerful it is. Carl looked at the table in front of him and gradually smiled. Crack, boom. Palm lightning struck the table in front of him. The table instantly turned into charcoal and exploded to the ground. Chapter 21 Strong Physique. Captain Carl, are you okay? Clay was a little anxious. After hearing a loud noise from Captain Carl's room, he rushed over immediately and smashed the door directly. But when Clay came in, he saw the charred table. It's okay, I'm just testing out my new moves. Crack. Then he looked at Carl's hands and flashed a thunderflower. Captain, did you eat devil fruit? This was the first time that Clay saw Carl with the ability of thunder and lightning. His first reaction was that Carl had eaten devil fruit. After all, devil fruit is full of strange things and has all kinds of abilities. Thunder and lightning are not very rare, but he also thinks that I'm glad that Captain Carl's strength has increased, which is also a good thing for him. That's right. Carl didn't explain much. After all, he didn't want others to know the ability he now had. He wanted to use it as a trump card. By the way, how long until we return to Beehive Island? Carl changed his attitude and put away his right hand. He wanted to know how long it would take to return to Beehive Island. Captain Carl, due to the wind and waves ahead, it may take a little longer. There was a storm outside, which Clay had not expected, but fortunately it was not big. It's okay, safety first, don't be in a hurry to return. By the way, have you seen those 2 children? Since he couldn't return to Honeycomb Island in a short time, he thought of Long Yi and Long Er. It just so happened that he wanted to study the physiques of the 2 of them. Captain, are they Long Yi and Long Er? I saw them. They are 2 very well-behaved children. They have just washed up and are now being examined by the ship's doctor. Clay showed an anti-smile. He didn't know why, but he liked those 2 children very much. I'll leave them to you to lead them from now on. Carl saw his smile and thought that since you think the 2 children are fun, then they will be left to you. Ah, Captain, I don't know how to take care of children either. Sure enough, When he heard that Captain Carl wanted to hand over Long Yi and Long to his leadership, he suddenly showed an embarrassed expression. Ha ha ha, it's settled, let's go and see the two of them. Carl stood up, smiled, patted him on the shoulder, and walked out of the room first without giving him a chance to refuse. No, Captain, why don't you take the lead? I can't do it. Clay turned around and followed, his words full of excuses. Clay didn't want to be surrounded by two little followers. He had no experience in taking care of children. He liked it, but that didn't mean he wanted to take care of two children. But no matter what Clay said, Carl didn't reply to him. How are they two? Carl first walked to the infirmary and asked the ship's doctor. There is no disease in my body. I am very healthy. I just lack some nutrients. When the ship's doctor saw Carl coming, he immediately stood up and said, because after all, these were children sent by Carl himself, and the ship's doctor still attached great importance to them, but he did not expect that two such thin children did not have any physical diseases. He felt very strange. When Carl sensed that their bodies had special energy, he knew that they were not ordinary people, and naturally they would not have such problems as the ship's doctor. As two people with special bloodlines, as long as they have enough nutrition, they can quickly replenish their bodies. Come on, you two follow me to the cafeteria. It's Mr. Carl. Long Yi and Long said happily that today was their first time taking a bath. They smelled each other, and their bodies smelled of a faint fragrance. This smells much better than the rancid smell on my body before. Carl walked to the restaurant and said to Long Yi and Long You two go and bring the food. Take as much as you can eat, don't waste it. Okay, Lord Carl. After hearing Carl's words, Long Yi quickly dragged Long and ran to the kitchen. He knew that the two of them were able to live such a life now because of Lord Carl, so they were very grateful to Carl. Long Yi and Long quickly came back with a huge plate each carrying a variety of barbecued meats. Eat. He mainly wanted to see if Long Yi and Long could stimulate the energy in their bodies after supplementing their nutrition. Long Yi and Long began to swallow after receiving the order. Long shed tears while eating. Thank you, Lord Carl. We haven't had such a sumptuous meal in a long time. As Long spoke, he remembered the time when they were in the auction house and starved for 9 meals in 3 days. At that time, they tied their stomachs with hemp ropes and comforted each other to forget their hunger. Thank you, Lord Carl, for taking me in. Okay, let's eat quickly. Okay, Lord Carl. Long Yi and Long also have no ink marks. Instead, they continued to start their gluttonous feast. As they were eating quickly, Carl keenly noticed that the weak energy in their two bodies gradually grew stronger. As it grew stronger, the energy began to travel throughout their bodies. Their bodies also expanded rapidly like blowing up balloons, gradually returning to the level of a normal person. He knew that what he expected was correct. Long Yi and Long definitely had special bloodlines. Because only people with special bloodlines can digest food as quickly as possible in their stomachs and distribute nutrients throughout the body, allowing the body to return to its best condition as quickly as possible. If it is an ordinary person, it may take 10 days and a half to recuperate. But people with special bloodlines can return to their best condition anytime and anywhere as long as they have food. This is the charm of special blood. He couldn't help but think that Charlotte Linlin has been looking for people with special blood to have children, probably because of this. It's just that he can't tell which bloodline it is. After all, there are too many bloodlines that have disappeared in the world of pirates, and many of them have not been shown in the original work. System. Do you know the bloodline of these two children? Host and the others are 1/3 of the dragon race. Dragon? Carl had never heard of this name. In his memory, there should be no such thing as dragon blood in the pirate world. There used to be dragon people in this world, but, in short, they are the bloodline left behind by the dragon people. Carl understood when he heard this. It should be that huge things happened in the Void Century in the history of pirates, and many different races were exterminated. But there are many collateral bloodlines left behind. But he didn't expect that he was so lucky that he met two children of dragon-human bloodline. Then he looked closely at their heads. When he looked carefully, he did find that they had 2 small horns on each side of their heads. They were just 2 small bulges due to malnutrition. Moreover, he sensed that after the weak energy on their bodies circulated, it would return to the small horn on their heads. From this, he could conclude that these 2 little horns should be the symbol of their dragon people. After knowing what bloodline the two of them belonged to, Carl had already turned around and left. After all, he already knew what bloodline they were in, so he would have to deal with some of his own affairs next. As for Long Yi and Long they continued to eat crazily where they were. Their bodies now lacked nutrients. The food they had just served was finished, so they went to the kitchen to bring some more. At the same time, in a certain corner of the deck. Hey, Captain Rocks! Chapter 22 Klulu Pirates. But on the way back, he encountered a pirate group. He did not expect that this pirate group would disrupt his subsequent plans. There is a pirate ship in front of the captain. Little ones, come closer to me. Ah ha ha. Because Carl did not fly the Rocks pirate flag when he traveled, Krolru did not know that they were members of the Rocks pirate, and a confused battle began. Boom. The opponent launched the attack first. Hurry up and fight back. The crew of Carl's pirate ship immediately aimed their cannons at Krul's pirates to attack. They were Rocks pirates. It seemed that they had never seen anyone on the sea who dared to directly confront them. Unexpectedly, they just didn't hang up today. One Piece, I met a group of stupid young people. The cannonball exploded on the sea, causing a large splash of water. Come on, little ones. We are the Krolru pirates, please surrender your lives quickly. In just the moment of fighting, both sides fired countless cannonballs, and in just a moment, the two sides entered a fierce battle. The Kuru pirates are one of the pirate groups under the giant soldier pirates. They are composed of some humans and a small amount of giants. Captain Krulul is the 13th son of Jorul of the giant pirates, but Carl didn't know about it, so a wonderful misunderstanding was born. Lord Carl. Carl walked to the deck without any doubts, and Clay greeted him immediately. What happened? The one opposite Mr. Carl is known as the Krolru pirates. They were officially hostile to us and launched an attack as soon as they met us. And since Clay was a slave who had just been rescued, he didn't know that True was Yale's 13th son. So when neither side knew the identities of the two sides, the battle began. Okay, I get it. Now that we know we are enemies, there is nothing more to say. While blocking the cannonballs coming from a distance with his fists, Carl flew towards the Krolru pirates on the moonwalk. Capture the thief first and capture the king. As long as he takes down the opponent's captain, the battle will almost be over. Captain Kroll, someone is flying over. Let me see what it is. Captain Krulu is a giant, 20 meters tall and powerful. He looked up and saw Carl flying towards him at high speed. He looked horrified. After all, the flying pirates were generally not that bad. Bring me my weapons quickly, it's the captain. The two giants next to him quickly brought his weapons over. Krolru picked up the big sword, as if he had regained his confidence. The small human race was vulnerable. Ha ha ha. Look at me. Slash wave. Krolru swung his sword quickly, and a sword energy flew towards Carl. Carl waved his fist with such force that it was like rolling a river, smashing the sword energy into pieces. Carl then landed directly on the deck of the Krolru pirates. No matter what your reasons are, since you have taken the lead in showing your sword, you must be determined to die. An ordinary punch. Carl is unwilling to kill civilians, but that doesn't mean he will let these vicious pirates go. In his opinion, except for a few groups of pirates in the pirate world who may be good, most of the rest are unforgivable sins. People. He was not lenient about this, and struck directly with all his strength, exerting force with his feet, waving the fist that covered armament hockey, and rushed towards Krolru. Clang. Krolru quickly swung his sword to resist Carl's attack. The heavy punch made him feel as if a huge mountain was rushing towards him. But Carl's fist is covered with armament hockey, and his strength has increased a lot, and now his strength far exceeds that of Vice Admiral. Click. A crisp sound came, and the long sword split into pieces in an instant, and the broken fragments quickly attacked the pirate behind Kroll. Well. Ah! Suddenly, the pirates on the deck were scratched one by the flying debris, and a large number of pirates fell to the ground. Bang! At this moment, the two ships were close to each other. Kroll pirates, bah, we are still the Rocks pirates, come on guys. The leader of the pirate team picked up the long knife and rushed towards the members of the Krolru pirates. Kill. The two ships were connected within a short period of time. Clay led some pirates onto the deck to fight the Krolru pirates. Boom. At the same time, Karl's iron fist did not weaken, and directly hit Krolru's head, slamming him onto the deck. Krolru sat up from the deck and rubbed his head. He was a little dizzy from the punch. Armament hockey covered. Karl did not wait for him to recover, but pursued the victory and continued to swing his violent fists. Krolru sat there and had not yet recovered, and had no time to dodge. This punch directly split Krolru's head into pieces. Bang! Krolru's body hit the deck hard. Karl shook off the blood on his hands. Then he looked at the scene on the field, and the advantage was on his side. Krolru, the captain of the Krolru pirates, is the 13th son of the giant soldier pirates. He ran out secretly. With his strength, he shouldn't have been able to leave the large fleet. His strength was not enough to protect himself on the sea, but he unexpectedly met Karl and died there. Karl, on the other hand, breathed out and his mood instantly became lighter. After all, when he just watched his crew killing civilians in the Phil Kingdom, he had been suppressing a rage in his heart. Maybe it's because he traveled from Blue Star, and kindness are still in his heart. But he knew that he couldn't change anything. These were not his loyal men, they were just people he picked up casually on Beehive Island. If he didn't let them kill, it would be counterproductive and cause his men to disobey his orders. This made him more determined to cultivate his own power, and his men would never do such a thing in the future. The battle was over soon. Although there were some injuries on his side, the casualties were not large. Most of them were slaves who had just joined on the island. After all, the other parties are just minions and there are no strong people there. Clay alone is enough to face this situation, not to mention the help of many pirates. No prisoners were taken in the battle, and the great ship was subsequently consumed in a great fire. After all, if you rashly accept hostile prisoners on the sea, big problems may arise. Then the journey back to Beehive Island was smooth sailing. As time went by in a hurry, evening came soon. Beehive Island is here. A loud voice from the observation deck immediately sounded throughout the entire pirate ship. Reached? Come back so soon. Have a party, have a party. The pirates in the cabin immediately ran to the deck and cheered. Every time they went out to rob, they came back. The first thing that happened on Beehive Island was the banquet, and they couldn't wait. After all, their lives were tied to their belts every day, and the banquet was their only way to have fun and relax. Karl also came out when he heard the noise outside. Looking at the lights in the distance, he thought that rocks wouldn't doubt him this time. Long Yi and Long were standing next to him, and they looked towards Beehive Island excitedly. I saw the Beehive Island in the distance brightly lit. Brother, is this Beehive Island? Long rarely saw the outside world, especially the brightly lit night. He hadn't seen it for a long time. Yes, from today on we are no longer slaves. Long Yi patted Long head. Long Yi's happiness came from his heart. He knew that after today, they would face a different life, but this life was definitely much freer than being a slave. Clay, take the two of them to the station. I will go to Captain Rox to report the situation. Got it, Captain. Clay held Long Yi and Long in each hand and walked towards the station. In fact, Karl had already guessed that there should be Rox spy on his ship. But he also had to report to Rox. After all, the two concepts were different. Hello Captain Karl. Captain Karl. The pirates passing by along the way greeted Karl one after another. You're lucky this time. Kaido muttered in the distance. He didn't expect the people of Phil Kingdom to be so weak. Seeing that Karl didn't have any injuries on his body, he was very disappointed. Strong men may have feelings for each other. When Kaido looked at him, he immediately sensed it and looked at Kaido in the distance. Kaido looked at him without flinching. Gu la 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 la. Karl is back. Karl was walking towards the meeting hall. Newgate was seen sitting on a barrel and drinking heavily by the roadside. Okay, there are no strong people in the Phil Kingdom, but I have to report to Captain Rox first. Karl immediately turned his gaze to the roadside and looked at Newgate. Come on, Kid Karl. Newgate raised his glass to him. We'll have a drink later. Karl also understood why strong people like to drink, so that alcohol can suppress some of their emotions. Okay, Karl, I'll wait for you here. Chapter 23 Banquet. He walked straight to the pirate hall. The corner of Karl's mouth raised slightly. He believed that there would be no such problem in the future. Although he was not afraid, if there were too many such temptations, it would affect his plan, which would be a bit more than worth the gain. Opening the door, the pirate hall was brightly lit. Rox was sitting in the main seat. He was the only one in the entire hall, obviously waiting for him. The rest of the division captains are staying at their stations. Rox will not summon them unless there is something important. Captain Rox Phil Kingdom. Carl walked forward, sat on the chair and spoke with a relaxed expression. Rox didn't wait for him to finish, but laughed boldly. Gia ha 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 ha. A terrifying aura came from Rox. Good job, Carl. Rox patted the handle of the seat, stood up and walked towards him. I already know about you. You completed the mission very well. Thank you for your hard work. Let's take a good rest on Beehive Island. There will be a new mission soon. Because the informant on the ship had already reported the situation to him through the phone bug, he even knew that Carl had killed the 13th son of the giant soldier pirates on the way. But in his opinion, this is not a big deal. The giant pirates simply do not dare to compete head-on with their pirates. If the axe pirates and giant soldier pirates hadn't joined forces, he would have wiped them out long ago. Even after he heard that Jorel was easily killed by Carl, he immediately spread the news that Rox had gone out to Beehive Island to confuse Jorel, but he didn't know if it would work. He is now relieved about Carl. After all, if it is an undercover agent sent by Marine, then he will not carry out the task of destroying the Kingdom of Phil. You must know that this is a world government member country, and Marine's power in the New World it is already weak, and Marine will definitely be heartbroken if it loses another world government member country. Carl might have run away midway, or reported the matter to Marine, but things wouldn't have gone so smoothly anyway. Now that Carl has unconditionally carried out his order, his suspicion of Carl has dissipated. From now on, Carl can be regarded as his true captain of the 6th Division. You can also bring Carl with you for the next big plan. After all, with one more strong person, the success rate of the plan will be much higher. There will be a grand banquet tonight to celebrate your joining. Don't forget to attend. Don't worry, Captain, I won't be absent. Carl knew it was for him, so he certainly wouldn't be absent. Gia ha 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 ha. Rox is happy for the addition of a strong player. Good. I'll take my leave now, Captain. When Carl saw that Rox had nothing else to do, he turned around and left. Rox sat in the lobby for a while, then Hockey walked to the square. When Carl came out, he found Newgate and started drinking with him. Newgate. Goolalala. Carl. On the side, Charlotte Linlin was thinking about how to get Carl. After all, she could clearly sense that Carl's strength was improving rapidly. If he didn't move faster, she would really have no chance. She especially wanted to have a strong child with Carl. At this time, the square was already bustling with people, and the ground was filled with tables and chairs filled with delicious food. The pirates sat down one after another. At this time, there was a huge table on the front desk, where captains such as Edward Newgate, Golden Lion, Charlotte Linlin, John Ochaku, and Carl sat respectively. As Rox walked towards the front desk of the square, the scene suddenly became extremely silent. Naturally, Carl also sat on it. Rox's eyes were stern. Suddenly, his eyes became extremely firm, revealing an undoubted power. In an instant, an invisible force spurted out of Rox's body, sweeping through him like a huge wave. The surrounding pirates felt a strong shock, as if being stared at by an ancient giant beast, and their whole bodies were shaking. This is Rox Conqueror's Hockey, domineering and making people want to surrender involuntarily. Boys, welcome our 6th team captain, Carl, to join us Rox Pirate. Rox pointed at Carl, and Carl stood up and said hello to everyone present. I, Carl, now officially join the Rox Pirate and become the captain of the 6th Division. Cheer as much as you like, the party begins. Following Rox's order, the pirates in the audience immediately became active. They drank wine and ate, and the scene was very lively for a while. Ouch! The banquet has begun. Don't grab it, this meat is mine. Why did you go out with Captain Carl once and you turned into a big-tailed wolf? Give it to me. His name is Grace, and he is a tall, strong man with tattoos on his arms. Why are you not convinced? Joel replied that he was a dark-skinned man with a strong build, 2 meters tall, and Grace often bullied him on weekdays. Snort. Grace only dares to hum, because he has not joined any squad yet, so there is no one above him to protect him. In Rox Pirate, there is no squad leader to protect you. Life and death are sometimes not under your control, and you may be killed by a strong person at any time. Joel looked at Grace and showed a proud face after seeing that he didn't continue to speak. After all, Joel now has a backer, and Grace doesn't dare to provoke him at all. Don't you know it yet? Captain Carl gave us 50% of the treasure when we went to Fill Kingdom this time. Joel seemed happy and proud as he spoke. What, is it true or false? Tell me in detail. Just tell me quickly, I want to join you too. Listen to me slowly. Joel took a leisurely sip of wine. We are going to the Kingdom of Tyre next. It is said that the Kingdom of Tyre has prepared a large amount of treasures to provide to the celestial dragons. Next, we will dispatch the whole group. The goal is the Kingdom of Tyre, and we may collide with Admiral Rock said calmly. This is what he has been busy with recently. After all, he has to hide it from the giant soldiers and the ex-pirates. Prevent them from coming over and interfering. Wahahaha. I like treasures. John was the first to look forward to it, because he was the one who liked treasure the most among everyone present. John, look at you like that. Are there any strong men in their kingdom? Newgate is not interested in treasures. What he hopes more is to have a good fight. After all, Newgate's strength is now at its peak. He is not as old as at the beginning of the anime, so he has the passion of a young man. He desires more fighting. Because Newgate does not like killing civilians now, although Newgate at this period has not yet sent the looted treasure back to his hometown. Well, I wonder if there are any delicious pastries in the Kingdom of Tyre. Charlotte Linlin was still a great beauty at this time, although her Soraya was not too serious. But there will be occasional attacks, and at this time, we have to rely on the long bread. Gia ha ha ha. Okay, that's it. Let's go back and make preparations. In a month, the Kingdom of Tyre will prepare the items for the celestial dragons, and everyone will set off together. Rox glanced at everyone and said decisively. Rox was only giving a unilateral notification, not a request, so he didn't need any opinions from the crew. After all, his method of ruling the crew was through force. Chapter 24 Experiment. Hey ha, watch out. A childish voice woke Carl up from his deep sleep. Yesterday, Carl was drinking with Newgate in the back. Some of them drank too much. I didn't expect that the wine in the pirate world also has high alcohol content. Think about it, there are people with various abilities in the pirate world. He underestimated it. He drank it yesterday. He was unconscious, but it was Clay who finally brought him back. Drinking will ruin things. Drinking will ruin things. Drink less in the future. Carl held his forehead. He felt a little unclear in his mind, but it quickly dissipated. It was obvious that the Titan talent was working. But in Carl's memory, it seemed that the system gave him a notification sound yesterday, but he didn't have time to read it at the time. He didn't care now. He heard what should be Long Yi's voice outside, and he quickly walked out of the door. Warm sunlight shone on his body. Not far away, Clay was teaching Long Yi and Long simple physical training. You three come here. I'll teach you a way to use energy. See if you can learn it. Carl wanted to pass the golden light spell to them. After all, the defensive properties and power of the golden light spell were quite good. And he also wanted to try to see if he could teach some of the skills in the template heroes to people in the pirate world. If he can, then he can make his men's strength soar rapidly, but he must control their loyalty carefully. Although he is not afraid of the leakage of his skills, he should be prepared. Clay looked excited. He held Long 1 in one hand and Long 2 in the other. He walked up to Carl in a few steps. Captain Carl was so strong. He must have taught them how to become stronger. Sit tight. I will circulate the energy in your body for a week, and you try to understand this energy. I will put some energy into your body, and you try to use this energy to walk around your body. Dragon 1 and Dragon 2 are of dragon human blood, and Clay is a fishman, neither of whom are human. I don't know if it is feasible, but it can be experimented. If they can all do it, it means that this ability cannot be practiced normally in the pirate world. The three of them immediately sat cross-legged in front of Carl, their eyes full of expectation. Lord Carl was so powerful that he should not harm them. Master Carl, we are ready. Seeing their expectant looks, Carl started his operation, first putting his hand on Clay's shoulder. Hiss. Clay felt a gentle energy coming from Master Carl's palm on his shoulder. This unfamiliar energy, with an indescribable feeling, traveled along the acupuncture points all over his body for a week, making him feel as if he was soaking in a hot spring. Under Clay's perception, His body yearned for this warmth, and some of the hidden injuries on his body were slowly recovering. But during this process, Clay was sweating profusely, and it was really painful to forcefully open some blocked meridians. Clay is already an adult, and most of his muscles and bones have grown, so this energy is also opening up his ren and du meridians. Experience it. Carl left a trace of energy on Clay for a week, and then placed his hands on Long Yi and Long Er's shoulders respectively. Hiss. The same formula, but Dragon 1 and Dragon 2 suffered much less pain than Clay. After all, they were still young and their muscles and bones had not yet fully grown. It didn't take much effort to open up the Ren and Du channels, and he quickly traveled for a week. After Carl completed this series of actions, he stood in front of the three of them with his hands behind his back, looking at the energy flowing in their bodies. The three of them closed their eyes tightly, as if feeling the energy in their bodies. Suddenly Carl noticed that Clay's right hand shone with a golden light. He had a guess in his mind. Congratulations to host. The ability of one person is passed on to the pirate world, slightly modifying the pirate world line. The mall module has been opened. Hearing the system's beep, as expected, Clay stood up first, his right hand wrapped in golden light. It was a golden light spell, but the golden light quickly dissipated. Apparently Clay was not yet proficient at it. Too excited. What kind of power is this? In his excitement, Clay failed to control the golden light spell, causing it to disperse. This is the energy method I created. I call it the golden light spell. Because I trust you enough to hand him over to you. I hope you won't live up to my expectations. Sorry, Heavenly Master. I will borrow the name of the Taoist Eight Gods Curse, Golden Light Curse. I hope you won't mind. Please rest assured, Lord Carl, I will remain absolutely loyal to you and obey your orders unconditionally. With a respectful look on his face, Clay knelt down on one knee and said with his hands clasped in fists. So are we. Long Yi and Long Er watched Clay do this and also learned from it. Okay, I believe in your loyalty, get up. After Carl called them up, he was secretly happy in his heart. After all, it had been confirmed that the skills of the template hero could appear in the pirate world in a reasonable way. In this case, it would be easier for him to develop his power in the future. You need to practice this energy more. Carl asked them to practice more on how this energy works and form muscle memory. It's Mr. Carl, I won't slack off. For Clay, his physical fitness has reached its upper limit. Now that there is a new way to enhance his strength, he is eager to learn it immediately. Ah! Thump! Long Yi lay on the ground, and saw Long Er holding a golden whip in his right hand, and the end of the whip was tied to Long Yi's ankle. Ha 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 ha! Long Er looked at Long Yi lying on the ground and immediately showed a grimace. Under Carl's gaze, he withdrew the golden whip. You are quite skilled. Clay, please train them both well. Carl wasn't angry. He didn't expect these two little things to master the use of the golden light spell so quickly. Don't worry, Lord Carl, I will train them both well. Clay rubbed his fists and said with a grin. Frightened, Long Yi and Long Er hugged each other tightly. And you must follow the training methods I teach you and train your physical fitness as soon as possible. Come, follow me. First like this, then like this. The hours passed quickly. You must train every day, more than 4 hours. Ah, isn't it? As soon as Long Er made a complaint, after all, the child was still young and it was normal for him to like to play. Long Er immediately noticed that Carl was staring at him with a frown on his face. Guaranteed to complete the task. Change your tune immediately. And you must master armament hockey and observation hockey. They are the only way to become a strong person. I'm just starting out in this area, so I'll find someone to teach you. Carl was a little helpless. His armament hockey was learned from the duel with Newgate and Kong. This method obviously cannot be copied. And he doesn't even know how to train based on his own knowledge. Since he didn't know how to do it himself, it was even less possible for him to teach them how to learn weapon colors and observation hockey. He had to learn it. You have to practice hard and don't let down my hard work. This is his first team, and they need to grow up well. It is not in vain for him to place such a big bet. Otherwise, his efforts would not have been in vain. Chapter 25 Request. After Carl finished speaking, he turned around and left. He wanted to find Newgate. After all, he only had a better relationship with Newgate in Rock's Pirate. He wanted Newgate to teach him how to understand observation hockey. Carl saw that it was getting close to evening, so he thought it would be better to go see Newgate tomorrow morning with a jug of wine, which might have a greater chance of success. As he ordered, he asked his men to collect a wine flask, which should be filled with the specialty wine of Newgate's hometown. On the other side, I kept releasing armament hockey in the yard and experienced the feeling of armament hockey every time. He wanted to experience the deeper level of armament hockey. After all, armament hockey is divided into 3 levels: coverage, external release, and internal destruction. Covering is to cover the body with armament hockey to enhance the body's defense. External placement is to cover weapons and clothing with armament colors to increase the attack power of weapons and the defense power of items. Internal destruction allows armament hockey to be driven into the enemy's body to destroy the inside of his body. His current armament hockey has only realized how to cover his fists and arms, and he is still a long way from covering his whole body. He desperately wanted to increase his strength. After all, the time for the Battle of the Valley of Gods was getting closer, and he needed to gain the ability to protect himself as soon as possible. And because his abilities come so easily, although his overall strength can reach Vice Admiral level, he has very little actual combat experience. Most of the enemies were defeated by his unreasonable strength and long-lasting physical strength. Even John was defeated in this way. He actually used some small tricks. But if he really encounters Marine Admiral and engages in a life-and-death struggle, he may not be able to hold on for long before he is defeated. He doesn't want to run away when the time comes. So he must understand observation hockey as soon as possible, which can increase his combat ability from the side. The 3 of Clay have already mastered the Golden Light spell, so for the time being, they are allowed to practice on their own. It may be due to the special constitution of the pirate world. After all, in the world of pirates, people with various talents emerge in an endless stream. Some are born with the ability to breathe fire, such as Yan Ember, and some are born with strange powers, such as Charlotte Linlin. Now that they have understood it, it is not surprising that they can master the Golden Light curse in a short time. Clay, on the other hand, deeply remembered the mission that Carl gave him. Every day after that, he drained Long 1 and Long 2 of their physical strength before letting them rest. This also caused Long Yi and Long to gradually become afraid of him. In the early morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone on the earth, Carl walked to Newgate's room carrying a huge wine bottle. With the gradual development of his Titan power bloodline, his height has now reached about 3.5 meters. But when he arrived at Newgate's door, he was still shocked. This was the first time he had seen such a big door. After all, Whitebeard is nearly 7 meters tall, and his sword is nearly 10 meters tall. So his door reached an astonishing 12 meters high. Just as Carl was about to knock on the door was suddenly opened from the inside. Gu la 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 la. Carl. Why are you here? Newgate is a little happy. After all, in Rock's Pirate, his and Carl's personalities are quite consistent. He prefers Carl's style. He is very happy that Carl can come to him so early. After all, he is in Rock's Pirate. To be honest, I don't have any close friends. It's just that he didn't know what exactly Carl wanted to do when he came to him so early, but he saw the huge wine bottle in Carl's hand. Whoosh! Newgate caught the wine gourd thrown by Carl. Well, the wine from my hometown. Newgate just took the wine bottle and smelled the faint aroma of wine. This was specially collected by Carl. Great wine from home in Newgate. It seems like Carl has something to say. Newgate unscrewed the cap, took a sip of wine and said, "Yes, Newgate, I would like to ask you about observation hockey." Carl wants Newgate to teach him the observation hockey, because once he masters this ability, he will gain a huge advantage in battle and greatly improve his combat capabilities. Upon hearing this, Newgate knew that the purpose of Carl's visit to him was to know how to awaken observation hockey. I have no other choice but to get beaten. Newgate invited him into the room and briefly talked about how to awaken observation hockey. The basic training method is to blindfold his eyes, and then hit him with pebbles at high speed from a distance, so that his body can gradually get used to this feeling, and then the body can instinctively awaken observation hockey. Because if the speed of the pebble is too slow, the body will not sense the crisis, and awakening observation hockey will have no effect. "Please help me, please," Carl begged and said. After all, he himself, observation hockey, may not awaken for a long time, so he needs Newgate to help him speed up the process of awakening observation haki. No problem. Even if you don't care about the bottle of wine, if you come to me as soon as possible, I will help you. Gu la la la. Let's go. Newgate hung the wine bottle on his waist, then picked up his haki long knife, and took the lead to take Carl to an uninhabited island next to Beehive Island. This small island is not far from Beehive Island, but this small island does not have any strategic value, so there are no pirates on the island. Just perfect for practicing without worrying about destroying this kind of island. I won't hold back. Newgate was the first to explain to Carl that after all, if he wanted to help a strong man like Carl awaken observation haki, he would need to use all his strength, so he needed to talk to him in advance to avoid wasted effort. No problem, just do your best. Carl doesn't care that much. He just wants to awaken observation haki now. As long as he can awaken observation haki, it doesn't matter if he suffers a little. By the way, don't cover it with armament haki. This way, the body will not have a sense of crisis, and the effect will be weakened. Newgate again kindly reminded me, no problem, come on. Whoosh. As soon as Carl finished speaking, Newgate had already hit his right shoulder with a stone. Pung. Carl only felt a strong gust of wind coming, and there was a sharp pain in his right shoulder, and then his body fell backward involuntarily. Even though his physique was constantly being sublimated by the power of the Titan, the pain still spread throughout his body in an instant. After all, he was in a fully relaxed state just now, so his muscles were not tense. He stood up again and gritted his teeth. Continue. Swish swish. Newgate saw that he was not in great pain, so he threw 3 pebbles in succession, and the speed of the pebbles was even faster than the last one. Hit his legs and abdomen in a triangular shape. Bang. Although Carl immediately dodged when he heard the sound and stepped out to the right with his whole body, one of them still hit him in the abdomen, and his body hit the beach hard. Well, hiss. The pain spread from the abdomen to the whole body. Newgate really didn't hold back. Newgate saw that there was nothing wrong with Carl and started the next round of attacks. Whoosh whoosh. There was no time for Carl to react, and the attack came immediately. One fights, the other hides. Then Carl and Newgate fought and hid on the island until night.